baby. KRLD FM and HD1, Dallas Fort Worth.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
105.3 The Fan and the Dallas Cowboys Radio Network present Dallas Cowboys Football 2023.
And Prescott walks the dog. Touchdown Cowboys.
In crystal clear HD stereo. Today's pregame show is brought to you by
Volleman's Dairy, the official milk of the Dallas Cowboys. Texaco. Texaco with Techron delivers unbeatable gas mileage. Texaco with Techron, driving performance. Arrow Exterminators, official pest control provider of the Dallas Cowboys. Blockchain.com. Blockchain.com. Make your crypto play today. And by DallasCowboys.com. Keep track of the boys with daily podcasts and up-to-the-minute blogging at DallasCowboys.com and on the official Dallas Cowboys app.
Now, here's Eric Giafalo and Brian Broaddus.
Well, Broaddus, Trey Lance is a Cowboy, and we are once again broadcasting in the comfy confines of the Brad Sham radio booth right here inside of AT&T Stadium. There is a smile on your face for that reason, but my gosh, we get off the air with the G-Bag Nation at about 6:30 yesterday, and then all sorts of news starts coming out about Trey Lance is now a Dallas Cowboy. We got to, of course, get you set for Game 3, preseason finale, Cowboys and Raiders. Kickoff 3 hours from right now. It is the official pregame show of America's team. We are honored to be with you. So much to get into, but the Trey Lance stuff, it happened in real time as we were ending our show yesterday in the G-Bag Nation. We were all extremely surprised, and I believe you were as well.
Yeah, I think so. Sometimes you hear about deals. Sometimes, especially players that have some notoriety to them, and this one came a little bit as a late Friday
news
surprise.
Dump.
Yeah. We always talk about the news dumps and stuff like that, but I know in our shows we always talk about team building, and the questions that we asked, or I asked you, is like, or the other guys as well, is what would you give up for? What would you give up for Trey Lance? And everybody has their opinions, like, well, he looks like this and doesn't do that, and why is San Francisco giving up on him? And San Francisco, so there's all these questions about the player, and that's where teams are so much different than our discussions, where they have an idea, and a lot of times it's, hey, we had a second-round grade on this guy. There's a little bit of problems within, him being at San Francisco. There might be some questions about him being the third, quarterback. Maybe the 49ers had called, were calling around and saying, hey, would you be interested in? So you had a little bit of a leeway there. But this one kind of went real quiet. Mm-hmm. There wasn't any, there was even Steve Young, 49er legend, was talking about it might be best for Trey Lance to stay in San Francisco. And lo and behold, then he gets traded. So it's a great opportunity for him to move on. The 49ers are the ones that have to now answer all the questions about the draft picks they gave up, the time they spent with him, the money that they gave him. Dallas is just taking really a free look. And, I say free because, yeah, it costs you some draft capital, a 4th-round pick. I said earlier in the crosstalk with you and KG, I'll get your 4th-round pick back. Somebody will call me and want to move back in the draft, and I will get a 4th-round pick back one way or another. Don't focus on that. Mm-hmm. Focus on the fact that you added a quarterback to your roster that the team, the Cowboys, felt like had a 2nd-round grade. There's a lot of people that had Trey Lance, as a 1st-round player, maybe a top 10 player, maybe a top 15 player. And the Cowboys, hey, we got him, a grade of a 1.20, which is the top of the 2nd round. So they thought enough of the player. His age is where it needs to be. The only questions about him were the health, was, the ankle, the finger. He's dealt with some, injuries that have kind of set him back. But this to me, it was all positive. I watched Will Grier play the last couple of weeks, and there wasn't any question to me about keeping a 3rd quarterback. I was like, no. If there's somebody else, if we're going to play this 3rd quarterback game, and if we're not going to play the 3rd quarterback game, then that's fine. I'll carry another roster spot guy. But to go out and get a guy, like this, like a Trey Lance that you could work with, there's no pressure on him to have to play this year or anything like that. To me, it's just all positivity there.
Yeah, it's all upside with a guy like this. And you give up the 4th-round pick, you're going to end up paying him a guaranteed $6.25 million, fully guaranteed over the next 2 seasons. So, I mean, it's virtually a lottery ticket. And we'll see if they can develop a guy. But I thought it was a high upside move. As you said, it's really no risk. And you see what happens here. Now, when it comes to, as you mentioned, Will Grier gets the news yesterday, hey, we're trading for Trey Lance. You are going to be out of a job, but here in 3 hours, Will Grier will get one more chance for 4 quarters to go show that he's got something that maybe the other 31 teams might be interested in for their own team. But just the idea, like the NFL, it's a crazy world these guys live in. Hey, you've lost your job, but go give us one more great performance and give yourself that performance, and Will Grier, we'll see what you can do with it.
Yeah, I think that the opportunity for Will, again, he's going to try and he's got tape already out there on him of a couple of games. He'll get an opportunity to play today. Teams will, they have one final cut, one big cut, but these rosters will fluctuate really massively, I believe, as we get to the cut down day, as we get past. There'll be teams that, will claim 4 or 5 guys and put 4 or 5 guys on and stuff like that. So, to me, this is where I kind of like, for Will, it's a great opportunity because maybe not here, but somewhere else. Somewhere there's a team that doesn't have a quality 3rd quarterback or don't have a quality 2nd quarterback. Maybe he could come in and beat somebody out like that.
Now, when it comes to Trey Lance in this year, do you expect any sort of, with the guy who's able to, he's got a skill set that you can use right now in terms of being a guy who can run the football. Do you envision any type of Trey Lance package, Taysom Hill style? Like, would you be interested in trying to incorporate him into something, short yardage or red zone situations where you can use his legs to your advantage? Or is it like, hey, I don't want to see you really at all this year. God help us if we don't have any quarterback injuries.
I don't know. Obviously, you need to get him in and kind of figure out where he's at. He's at. There's the one thing that we know about these defensive coaches, that they could bring players in and plug them in and things they have plans for them and stuff like that. Offensive coaches, we'll see. We've seen it a little bit with Deuce Vaughn, getting him involved. We'll see if in fact that they, can get how they got Turpin involved. Maybe they have some ideas and stuff like that. So I just kind of feel like, though, that it's a wait and see. Yeah. What you have, and maybe it's one of those things where they do practice and they kind of have an idea about him, and that maybe they could forward some type of scheme fits for him going forward.
And you got to think, for a guy, going up against the Cowboys defense in practice every day, that's certainly going to help you. Having a guy like Dak Prescott in your corner helping you, and Dak is a cerebral quarterback. He gets credited with that pretty often. And so, can he help Trey Lance from that standpoint as well? So I think it's a great opportunity for Trey Lance. And how much of, from a scouting standpoint, is he able to help you on a week where you're about to play Jalen Hurts or one of these running
absolutely.
quarterbacks?
Yeah, the ability of the quarterback with his ability to move and the option things that he could do. It's pretty simple when you have to have the ability to. The whole thing about scout team is the ability to mimic the other team's offense. And if you have a guy that has that ability, that knows how to play read option stuff, knows how to play on the move, can throw on the move, all those things. Yeah, the whole thing about about giving the defense, that type of a look, I think is totally beneficial to him being a part of this.
All right, it's the official pregame show of America's Team, brought to you by Reliant and NRG Company. Cowboys Nation, come out early to the Miller Lite House, the pregame gathering destination on the West Plaza of the stadium. Miller Lite is the only beer of the Cowboys, and we invite all Cowboys fans to join us for a great tailgate event. Sample some great seltzer brands as well, like Vizzy Hard Seltzer, the official hard seltzer of the Cowboys. It is the finale out here today at AT&T Stadium. Cowboys and Raiders, what are you expecting to see? We've been getting like Deron Bland playing in these games, Damone Clark, Osa Odigizua, guys we know that are starting players really for this Cowboys team. Do you expect to see any of those kind of guys today, or is this just all the youngsters who are a fringe roster spot?
Yeah,
guys?
I kind of feel like that it's kind of where we're at right now with the fringe. There's going to be some guys that have to play, and that's one of the reasons why I think it's going to be a lot like where we've seen the last couple of weeks, but maybe some of those guys like Osa, some of the guys that are starters, we might not see them, in this game. But it's the fact that you have really your complete group. I kind of feel like, to me, this is where, you can take those young guys, put them in there, and maybe pull back a guy or two, that you don't have to expose.
877-881-1053. What are you looking forward to seeing tonight? I mean, honestly, I know it's not sexy, but the kicking game. Have we even gotten to see Brandon Aubrey do a legit kick in a game?
Yeah. I don't think it's been a legit kick, but I think that, if you have an opportunity, to maybe get 2 or 3 field goal attempts, maybe this game will come down to him having to kick a field goal. Missed an opportunity last week, to get him on the field. They went for it on 4th down and all that. Could have kicked a field goal, and it had been, they were gonna, instead of going for a tie, maybe you get the work and stuff like that. So I kind of feel like, to me, that if he does get opportunities, or if they have the opportunities, that they need to take those.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
I mean, is he a guy that is pretty much already just locked up a spot?
I think he's absolutely locked up a spot. I think he's absolutely locked up a spot here. And, now let's see what happens going forward. But, they have a lot of confidence in his ability. The kickoffs have been good. We've seen only one missed extra point, the one made field goal, stuff like that. That's kind of, you're going to go into the season with that. He's not a veteran guy. He's a veteran guy as far as playing professional football because of what he's done with the Birmingham Stallions. But the NFL pressure is a lot different. And this is a team that likes to kick field goals, and likes to, when they, if he gets in situations, they'll try some long field goals. You can't, they don't believe in like fringe offense. They believe in, hey, if we're going to have to kick a 55-yard, we don't have a problem with that.
Dang be it.
Yeah, send it and let's go.
Now, and they did, acquire a new analytics department this offseason. Yeah. And I am excited to see how that changes their Sunday to Sunday thinking within the game, and maybe things that we've been accustomed to, like these long field goals where it's like, was that the better play than just going for it on 4th down or whatever? Maybe you'll see a little bit less of that. I don't know. But I am curious to see how the analytics department affects them on Sundays, and maybe we won't be able to notice it at all, but I'm hopeful that we'll get to see some stuff, because they made some legit hires in the analytic department this offseason, and I'm excited to see how that impacts them. Yeah. Now, another big name, of course, Kelvin Joseph. Where are we at with Kelvin Joseph? Because he's played really, really nicely. I assume we'll see a ton of him out there today. He's playing some nickel. He's playing some safety. Yeah. Is he a guy that you feel like is making this roster, or does he need to go out and ball hard tonight?
He's gonna make your roster because he's one of your core special teams players. What they're trying to figure out, though, is where else can he play? Can he play as that inside? They've moved Bland to the outside and put Joseph on the inside just to kind of see, because it's probably something he's more comfortable with when you watch him blocking flyers coming down the field. He's kind of lines up and he's able, that's how he plays in that jam technique. So, yeah, the fact that he's working inside, I think there's been some good reps. I think you'll see him play a lot tonight, on that outside, in that nickel area, and see if, in fact, they've got to figure out something what they're going to do with Jordan Lewis, too. That might be the Jordan Lewis thing might be very similar to what we saw last year, with what they did with Michael Gallup. You just keep him on. He's not ready. If he can be ready in 2 games, 3 games, but if you put him on some list, it's not going to be like, it's a 6-game kind of a thing. So I kind of feel like that right now they're going to keep him on the 53 and see if he can be ready in 2 or 3 games.
I know you're locked in on this offensive line tonight.
I am, absolutely, yeah. You got to try and figure out what's going to go on. Do you have the swing tackle? Is that Awesome Richards? Do you have what do you have with the others? With T.J. Bass, Josh Ball, who played better last week. You got to figure out what the situation is going to be at center. Is Matt Farniak that guy? This is where I think that maybe if you're looking for a potential add, a claim, a trade, something else this offensive line might be the group that you'll be focusing on.
Looking for a team who's got a little bit of a surplus there.
Yeah, a little surplus, but man, not many teams have it.
I know.
Not many teams have this. So, I mean, it's a little bit of a tough situation. You might have to give something good, and maybe you have something that you like. Maybe somebody has something that of your players that they like, that you can move and get a trade-off there for sure.
Okay, outside of offensive line, what's the other spot on the
linebacker.
team? It's linebacker.
Yeah, it's linebacker.
Because of Overshown?
Because of Overshown, but, do you keep an extra safety? Now the safeties are in play. What's the situation with Bell? We mentioned Joseph. What's the situation with those guys? And we've seen some really good play from Wanye Thomas as well. So to me, that's kind of where is he going to make this team? Where's Bell going to be and all that?
Gosh, I would hate to see any one of those guys not be.
I know
it gets so tight at the end.
It's all going to be,
and every position you got to have your guys, and you can't overdo it at one spot. But my gosh, the versatility of a Marquise Bell, what we've seen from Wanye Thomas, these are guys that I feel like could make an impact for you.
Yeah.
And in a defense where Dan Quinn loves him some safeties and these versatile kind of box and deep and all over the place, and with the status of Donovan Wilson right now being a touch up in the air, right? Where the recovery for Donovan Wilson not quite as fast as we were hoping it would be when he got banged up like day one in Oxnard. So I don't know. Those are guys that I would hate to see Wanye Thomas or Marquise Bell not be able to make this football team, because these guys they're absolute studs. And those are going to be two guys we're certainly interested in watching. Plenty more. Mazi Smith. We got to get to a lot of different guys as we're just getting started here on the official pregame show of the Dallas Cowboys live at AT&T Stadium. Let's go inside the Star with our Cowboys insider Bobby Belt next right here on The Fan.
Hi, Drew Pearson, former Dallas Cowboy and now Pro Football Hall of Famer here. If you're struggling with your
Signia, signia.com/thefan.
Dak had all the leverage on a possible extension. Cowboys have just created some leverage for themselves, according to Bobby Belt at BobbyBeltTX on the Twitter. He is our Cowboys insider, and he is right now joining us inside the Brad Sham radio booth here at AT&T Stadium. We get you set for preseason game number 3, the finale, Cowboys and Raiders. Trey Lance is a Cowboy, and now there is some leverage conversation. What was your first initial thought when you saw the trade go down, Bob?
It was funny when the trade first happened. I don't know how you guys felt. I know you guys were on the air when it happened, but when the trade first happened, I didn't know what to think at first. Like in general, it just took I couldn't immediately process context and everything else. I was just like, they just traded for a quarterback that was picked 3rd overall 3 years ago. And so I couldn't even put it into the proper context. I didn't want to even guess what it meant, so I wanted to start talking to some people, reaching out, because it's like, I don't want to speak to what this could mean. I happened to be in the bathroom shaving, Eric, because we were going out last night.
And it looks fantastic.
Thank you.
By the way.
I was shaving, and I just had stepped away for 5 minutes, came back to my phone, and saw I had 5 missed calls and 8 missed texts, and thought something was very wrong. And so, but after calling around a little bit and talking to some people and just getting some thoughts of people that are smarter than me, I think that this has several layers to it as to why they think it makes sense for them. And one of those is leverage in contract negotiations. One of the things that is not at play here, I don't think, is Trey Lance is not being brought here with the idea that he is here to replace Dak Prescott. That's not like the primary focus. Could that happen one day? Anything could happen. But that is not it's not like this is our successor, we're moving on from Dak, we're putting the plan into place. That's not what this trade is. This trade is, they like the player a great deal. They had a good evaluation on him just a couple of years ago. They've got 2 more years of essentially cheap control of a quarterback with a exceedingly high ceiling. Whether or not he can take traits and go from athlete to football player to quarterback is another question. But you've got 2 years of cheap control. You're giving up what you hope is a back end of the 4th round pick. You hope you're giving up essentially an early 5th or a compensatory 4th for somebody that you thought really well of just a couple of years ago. So cheap. You've needed the position in the last couple of years with Dak getting hurt, so it's good insurance. It's good to have for your depth in your room. And then, another aspect of this is Joel Corey from CBS Sports told us just a couple of weeks ago on 105 through the Fan that, Dak really kind of has the Cowboys by the throat in these negotiations. He can do pretty much everything. He doesn't have to play ball with them at all, doesn't have to engage with them on contract talks. His number is so big over the next couple of years that the Cowboys are the ones who have to get it down, and it's really going to have to be on his terms. So this is something where it's like, it is a leverage play. Now, if people want to say he lost out to Sam Darnold, how much leverage can that actually be? It's somebody that has the skill set that they can say, fine, if you were going to ask for ridiculous demands and give us no leg to stand on, then here's our leg to stand on. We do have a fallback option now, something that we feel comfortable exploring. And so I think it's several things in place here. And, one of them is gamesmanship in contract negotiations.
Do you feel like, though, with and does the move right now make sense? Or is it just because that, the 49ers, do you think the Cowboys were the ones that initiated the call, or do you think the 49ers were the ones trying to move the player? Do you think the Cowboys saw this in their deal of their 24/7 approach to scouting?
So I don't know if Dallas would have flat out initiated or whatever else. I do know that San Francisco had made it known that, hey, we're listening here, because there were a few teams that called, listened for a sec, and decided this doesn't make a ton of sense for us. And so I know it wasn't just reaching out. Now, did Dallas reach out once they heard through league channels that it was this way, or was Dallas one of the teams San Francisco reached out to? I don't know those specifics, but I do know that San Francisco had explored it as part of their options, and Dallas ends up with him. So I'm guessing, San Francisco and Dallas have made deals before. Those front offices know each other. They've done business before, so I'm sure it didn't take much to pick up a phone and just say, hey, he's here. Any interest there? Anything you guys want to explore?
Do you have any interest in the idea of, or is it too soon to even know, of whether or not Trey Lance with his legs could be utilized to help this team, this offense in certain situations this year?
See, that's an interesting question. That was one of the things I was thinking about, is that for now, I think right now, and we'll know more here in 30 minutes or so, I think, because we don't know specifics yet of who, but the Cowboys personnel people are going to be talking to reporters here at around 5 o'clock, and
Beautiful.
I'm sure this is part of it. And so hopefully we get some answers there, but I'm guessing what we're going to hear tonight from everybody when the question is asked, other than just, well, he's coming here to work and we'll find out. I think what we're going to hear is that Cooper Rush is probably still your backup quarterback right now. He's here to be the 3. He's here to learn. He's here to do work. He's here to, I'm guessing all year he's going to be Jalen Hurts the week of the Philly practice. That's going to be Trey Lance's job during, practice, working with the scout team. But yeah, I don't know. That's going to be something I'm interested to ask them about is, do they use him in ways that, Mariota's been used with teams in the past, where even if he's not starting, he's coming in on a goal line package or doing some different things. San Francisco used him that way early on before he was going to even take over, was they used him in little, dual sets with him and Garoppolo. And so I'd be interested to see if they do that. It's with how static I expect this offense to be, I don't know how much that fits into the plans of what they're designing, but it's something that remains to be seen and something we'll certainly ask them about tonight.
877-881-1053. It is the official pregame show of America's team. Bobby Belt, our Cowboys insider, getting you set for Cowboys and Raiders. What are you excited to see tonight? Is there a player? Is there a position group? It's always the offensive line right now, looking at this depth. But I know Mazi Smith hoping for a bounce back game. What do you got your eyes on?
Yeah, I think that we were talking about this all this week. I know Brian and I have had discussions about it too, is that when you're trying to figure out where are the potential cuts coming from, what do you feel pretty solid about? I feel like there's a lot more questions on the defensive side of the ball than the offensive side of the ball in terms of what they want to do, and specifically jobs that are up for grab. So right now on the offense, it feels like a lot of the jobs that are up for grabs are just, do we want to even make that a job? Do we want to make 6th wide receiver a thing? If we do, we know who our 6th wide receiver is. If we don't, then we'll just roll forward. Do we want to keep 3 tight ends or 4? Like, it's that kind of a thing. Whereas I don't know if they know totally all the defensive linemen that they want to keep. A set number, whether it's 10, 11, 9, whatever it is, I don't know if they're totally comfortable yet with what those look like. Same thing with the secondary. Linebacker's a little thin right now, so I don't know if that's nearly as much of one that they're questioning, but there's still jobs to be had in the secondary. Corner, safety, I think, defensive line. The offensive line, I think, is probably the most competitive spot on the offensive side of the ball, just in terms of, I think it could be, we could very easily be talking about on Tuesday maybe 1 or 2 guys that we haven't mentioned their names more than once or twice during training camp being on the 53. Because I think they're just as confused with what they're going to do in terms of stacking the depth behind what is now their core starting offensive line, which we know at this point is from left to right. It's Tyron, Tyler, Zach Martin, Terrence Steele. That's the offensive line right now.
Okay, follow up on that. If Tyron Smith goes down at some point, do you fully expect Tyler Smith to go back to left tackle the same way he did last year and then find somebody to fill in for him at guard? Or is there a different situation?
I would think so. That would be my guess. But, they could still make a move, and there's not a lot of offensive line depth to be traded around the NFL, but they could still make a move for a swing tackle, trade depth for depth. They could make a move for a linebacker. Like, there's certain positions where they could still make a trade, not even just a waiver claim. There could be guys that they legitimately view as, hey, this is somebody that we can add here. We've referenced it before. They did it end of 2018 training camp when they traded for Parker Anger, who got hurt, never played here. But they've done that sort of thing before. So barring acquiring somebody like that, or they get a wild hair like they did at the end of last year, yeah, let's sign Jason Peters. Barring something like that, yeah, I think the plan, if it's everybody that's in the building now, I think the plan would likely be you just kick, you would kick Tyler Smith out to tackle, and your left guard would become Farniak, Brock Hoffman, one of those guys, something like that.
Bobby, more likely to keep 4 running backs or 6 wide receivers?
I think,
because
I would
now
say
with the third quarterback, you're going to have to take a spot.
I would say 4 running backs. I feel somewhat confident at this moment, at least, that 4 running backs are on. That's where I'm at right now. So I would think 4 running backs. The only problem is, in both this running back and the receiver group, we're talking about keeping really small guys, Deuce Vaughn and Kevontae Turpin, that it's like, okay, how much can you use Kevontae Turpin outside? How frequently can he be on the field? How frequently can Deuce Vaughn be on the field? I could see a scenario where they're going to keep at least one of those, right? Like, they'll keep at least 4 running backs and 5 receivers, or 6 receivers and 3 running backs. But I could also see them, certain combinations, especially after they get some guys to IR and do some different things. I could see them carrying 6 receivers and 4 running backs. But right now I feel more comfortable that 4 running backs make it.
Bobby Belt with us here on the Fan. So do you view Deuce Vaughn as that running back 4? He's the 4th running back making it?
No. I would view it as more Malik Davis.
Malik Davis.
I'm just saying that in terms of like how frequently you can play Deuce Vaughn, they believe in his skill set. The only question for them, and it's not a question of doubt, or it's not something like where they're just pigeonholing him. You're talking about somebody who has never played in modern football at this size, at that position. Nobody's been that small. And so it's just they don't know. So I don't think it's that they doubt necessarily. It's just they don't know.
Okay.
Well, okay, let me ask you then this, and I hit it with the running back and the wide receiver. Who do you feel like you could get through waivers? Jalen Brooks or Malik Davis?
Davis, because Brooks has had a nice training camp, and that's great. But Brooks was a guy who at South Carolina, his whole calling card was elite special teamer. And I think some special teams coach or some, scouting department out there would go, well, we can have this guy to our special teams and he can do other things for us. And so I would think you've gotten Malik Davis through waivers once before.
Yeah.
And so, I
kind of feel like that you can get wide receivers through waivers, though, too.
Typically, I think you can. But when you're talking about a guy like Brooks, who was a captain at South Carolina and was considered a do-everything, he can block, he can catch, he can, play special teams. Even if he wasn't elite at any of them, he's the jack-of-all-trades, master-of-none type. It's still, I think, a strong skill set that's valued at the back end of rosters. And so as a back end of the roster pick, who's going to be more enticing to a team? Oh, this guy plays special teams. He'll block for me. Great. Or the running back who maybe doesn't have elite speed. Why is Dallas taking him off the field in pass protection situations during preseason? Okay, he's not playing, special teams for them the same way that Dowdle and Vaughn are in terms of returning.
Have you noticed Brooks playing special teams?
He hasn't yet, but I'm saying that was one of. I know that other teams across the league, that was one of the things they had eyed him for, because I had talked to people after the draft. Other teams looked at him as he had a potential future as a special teams ace.
Okay, the Wanye Thomas, Marquise Bell situation is very interesting to me. How do you view these players and Bell getting, and maybe both of them being, some of that hybrid linebacker stuff?
I think Bell, Brian, what do you think? I think Bell fits more naturally into it right now.
Yeah.
Especially
Agreed.
just given the size, and he fits the profile more. Man,
We'll end of the game tonight. We'll go through the tackles, and Bell he'll have double digits.
He's just.
It's hard. It's hard for me to put Bell on the street.
No, yeah,
Thomas is a little bit different story.
Sure.
He was physical last year in the way that he played, or not last year, but last week in the way he played, and he's had a good camp and he could cover. But I wonder again, they're going to have to go. They might go short at linebacker, thinking to carry extra safeties. And the safeties are going to be the linebacker guys. That's kind of where this roster will look really. I don't think when we get it Tuesday, it's going to be the same roster that we see on Friday.
Right. Yeah.
I just don't.
Another name I think we need to keep in mind here, like we talk about Wanye Thomas, Marquise Bell, somebody else who still factors into this that they like a lot, and we never talk about him, but he's been around in the building for 2 years now, and coaches always talk highly of him. That's Tyler Coyle. And so Tyler Coyle is a guy who's gotten some opportunities in practice. He's stepped in with first-team reps at times during practice. He's played in these preseason games. So Coyle is not a guy I think you can just outright knock out of that competition either. But certainly the overshown injury helps to kind of save the argument of maybe you keep Bell and Thomas and they play a little bit of a hybrid role.
Yeah, you can justify it with those guys. Have you noticed much about Coyle? Does he impress you at all?
No.
I mean, he's got speed, but I've never seen him in the game the way I see Wanye Thomas or Marquise Bell actually.
No,
making
it's
plays.
down to me. It's Thomas is the guy you got to think about, and with the possibility of maybe moving Kelvin Joseph to let him play some safety stuff too.
Yeah,
if you want to keep that.
Yeah, and I would just say on the point of Coyle specifically, he hasn't wowed me either. But a guy who didn't wow me last year that the coaching staff just talked about incessantly and then ended up making the roster and starting for you night one was Dennis Houston.
Oh yeah.
And so I think there are fans on the coaching staff that like him a lot.
And that matters. That matters quite a bit.
Sponsors matter.
Okay, what about Mazi Smith? We know he didn't play fantastic last week. How much do you guys want to see him tonight? Is this I need to get 4 quarters out of him because he needs every rep that he could possibly get? Where are you at with Mazi tonight, fellas?
I think reps are important for him. I think just his get off, technique, consistency, everything like that. It was not pretty at times against Seattle. There were other times where it looked good. And generally, I know Brad Shams talked about this before. You're not necessarily going to notice Mazi Smith when he's playing well. The way you're going to notice Mazi Smith when he's playing well is your off-ball linebackers are blowing up plays really quick because they're kept clean, they run through, and they're making plays because Mazi Smith's eating up blockers. So it's tough to notice him when he's playing well. It's easy to notice him when he's playing bad. And so that's a tough job and a responsibility to have at times. But I'm all for giving him as many reps as he needs. He's a young player. He needs the snaps. Let him get it.
Yeah, I'm to the same point with him. I think that, like I keep talking about with him, when you watch him play, he's clearly caught in his technique. He's clearly caught between having to what he was doing at Michigan and what they're trying to get him to do here at the Cowboys. Yep. And I think that there's times when he figures out the Cowboy way of doing it, and then there's revert back times of Michigan where and he's gonna have to learn that he is one of the strongest players out there on that defensive line. The problem is nobody's going to play you head up that way. These linemen, if they know you're stronger, they're going to play half man you. They're going to play on the edge. They're going to get in position. They're going to work around you. They're going to try and cut you off or pin you to the inside. He's got to learn to play quicker to not allow guys to be able to get position on him. And that's all about playing. That's what that is.
Okay, fantastic, Bobby. We appreciate you. Go get some of that carving station, as I know you're fired up for. And then I look forward to seeing what Jerry or whoever else is going to be speaking here in a little bit has to say.
I love you all.
Fantastic. Love you more. There he goes. Cowboys insider Bobby Belt here. We're under 2.5 hours to kick off. It's the pregame party. It's big, it's good, and it's only for Cowboys fans. The Cowboys special from Papa John's, a large one-topping pizza for only $9.99. Order today. Better ingredients, better pizza. Papa John's, the official pizza of the Dallas Cowboys. Let's go around the NFL. Let's take a look at this division. The top Cowboy you are focused on tonight, Jonathan Taylor. Josh Jacobs, he will be in the building tonight potentially as he is back with the Raiders. What does it all mean as we go around the NFL next right here on The Fan?
The Medal of Honor.
preseason game number 3 live from AT&T Stadium. We're inside the Brad Sham radio booth. He's Brian Broaddus, and I'm Eric Chiafalo. Today's game between the Vegas Raiders and the Dallas Cowboys at AT&T Stadium is brought to you by Tostitos, and so much to get to around the league, Broaddus. We got Josh Jacobs with these Vegas Raiders reporting to Vegas and signing his 1-year franchise tag, and he got a little upgraded deal worth up to $12 million. So he gets some more incentives, and there's another running back who has caved the same way sort of Saquon Barkley did, but now Josh Jacobs didn't have to go through camp. So a little bit of a win-win there as the Raiders get their back, and Josh Jacobs gets an opportunity to make a little bit more money. And if they franchise tag him again next year, it goes up to $14 million. So we'll see what happens with Josh Jacobs, and a lot of these running backs have a lot to gain this year with whatever production they can put on the field. And one of those running backs that's the most interesting right now is Jonathan Taylor, and him being on the trade market. The Colts have given him permission to seek a trade. Plenty of teams have been interested, including the Eagles right here in the NFC East. You have the Miami Dolphins being another team, the Bears. So there's a handful of teams that are jockeying for him, but they have this Tuesday sort of hard deadline of trying to get the deal done. What does that mean to you? Do you believe in that deadline, or is that a little bit, is there some gray area there? And how much would you be willing to give up for a guy like Jonathan Taylor, who probably wants to get a big deal as well contractually?
Well, the situation there with Jonathan Taylor is I could see what the Colts are doing. They are giving him the window of opportunity before the cut down to try and get something done. So if teams are interested, at least it's not something where it's after the cuts and then they're having to manipulate the roster to get him on, or to figure out things that they need to do. I could see teams being interested in him. He's a quality back, but getting paid. That's the whole. Now we're starting to see the things with Saquon Barkley. We're starting to see the things with what is going on here with Vegas and they're running, and Jacobs. Maybe it's not going to be something long term. Maybe it's not going to be a massive a deal. Maybe it's going to like something that's more workable, like we're talking about this $10 to $14 million kind of a situation. If you think you're going to make 16, 17, 18 million, that's not happening. So if Taylor's probably looking at like, okay, get me out of Indianapolis, and then, okay, now let's work on maybe they go shorter with more money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Instead, or most teams want to stretch it out and try and take it all the way out so they can manage.
The Cowboys sure love to do that.
But I think that someone's going to have to be very, very creative with these backs. But the backs are starting to realize, listen, take the tag number and add $2 million to it, and we're kind of talking where we need to be.
Right.
So somewhere, maybe I guarantee you the Cowboys have probably thought about things with Tony Pollard, in his situation. Is it, 3 years, $21 million? I'm just floating numbers out there, but is it something that is well below what the tag number is, but still, gets these guys paid, a decent wage?
So what would you, like draft pick wise, what would you?
Yeah, I think McCaffrey.
If you're a contending team.
Yeah, McCaffrey's situation last year with the twos, with the twos that they had to give up. I mean, I think that's kind of in the ballpark, that you're really talking about. If you're expecting a 2 and a 4, but if he plays, that 4 becomes a 3. I think there's some creative ways. I don't see somebody giving a 1 to get him, but maybe what you would do is, if you were one of these teams, you would say, okay, the Dolphins, if they feel like they're going to be at the back of the first round, maybe they're in a situation to say, sure, we'll give you 1, but we're not giving you anything else. That's it.
Yeah.
You either take the 1 or because we're not going to give you a 1 and a 3 or a 1 and a 4, So maybe not to have to package a bunch of picks together, a 2, a 3, and or a 2 and a 3 and a next year's 2, one of those things. You just go ahead and flat give them the 1 and say, okay, this is over with. We're done. I'm not giving you any more picks. And So it's either take my 1 or take, these 2 2s that I'm offering, the one this year and then maybe 1 or 2 and a 3, next year, kind of a thing.
Yeah, the Panthers received for Christian McCaffrey, they received a second-round pick, a third-round pick, a fourth-round pick, and then a 2024 fifth-round pick.
Serious.
So they got 3 picks in the previous draft, a second, a third, and a fourth, and then they got the fifth-round pick. I mean, I think you could also work in like the escalators of, hey, if he accomplishes this much for us, then we'll be willing to give you more. If he runs for 1,200 yards and 6 touchdowns, now we feel better, as the team that traded for him.
What would you feel better at giving up? Say you're the Dolphins. Do you feel better about giving up your 1 or giving up the 2, 3, and the 4?
I'd probably rather. I mean, I would be out on both of these things. Just
I know you would. I know.
Yes, I would probably rather give up the first-round pick. Isn't the second, third, and fourth, when you do the charting on it, it's probably worth more than what is? And you think if you're the Dolphins, you're probably picking 25th,
That's what I'm saying. If you're
late one,
if you're a playoff team, you're picking basically second round. I mean, that happened with Mazi Smith. You think about, it's basically, usually you have between 18 and 21, 22 names, first-round names on your board. Well, then, when you get to player 22, 23, 24, 20, those are all like second-round guys.
Right.
So if you're picking, like, say, 22 on back, you're really thinking about second-round players.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be like, take my 1. I could do some good with my 2, my 3, and my 4.
Yeah.
I would just rather let's make it a clean 1 instead of putting a bunch of things together and trying not. Nobody wants to give up their 1. That's just the whole.
Yeah,
nobody ever
hurts.
does. But for this type of player, if it means that much to you and you're thinking that you're going to. The only danger in this is if the Dolphins all of a sudden lose Tua. And if they do the trade and lose Tua,
now your running back doesn't even matter.
And now you're picking in the top 15.
Yeah.
That's when it hurts you.
Far too risky. Back to the Trey Lance stuff, though. I mean, how does it make you feel? We've got reports that the Bills, the Ravens, and the Lions were all in with the 49ers on trying to make a deal done with Trey Lance, but it was the Cowboys that separated themselves by offering that 4th-round pick. The other teams, hey, here's a 6th-round pick, maybe here's a conditional 5th-round pick, depending on how much he plays or whatever. But the Cowboys were the ones that stepped up with the 4th-round pick. And I wonder what that says when everybody else drew a different line in the sand. The Cowboys, I mean, I know he's here to back up Dak Prescott, but it makes me feel like they got confidence. There's at least a chance he could be something.
Yeah, that's this when you're talking about a player this young, being 23 years old, and the things that have held him back. When you talk to people that know the situation really well in San Francisco, it was more about the injuries. There's people that believe that when he broke his ankle, if he would have been able to play the whole season last year, there would have been some real up and downs. There would have been, but you would have at least seen, hey, this guy is a starting NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
There's people who will say when you watch him play, you don't see the awareness. You don't see awareness. And, that's okay. Well, is that something you can work on?
Your friend Michael Lombardi, I believe to paraphrase, is like, hey, Trey Lance didn't have the football instinct when he came out of the womb.
Yeah,
and I don't know that that's something that you can coach.
That's something you clearly have to work on. But every other report coming out of San Francisco was the guy loves football and he wants to be better and he's a smart kid. Now, can you help him with all these other things? And there's people in San Francisco, I'm sure, will tell you that is, the injuries set him back. That ankle, the finger, the things, everything that he dealt with took him away from learning his craft.
And all the while they have young Brock Purdy.
Yeah, and then they have Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo and others that are stepping up to make plays or take reps. So I don't like. I look at it as Dallas had a solid high 2nd-round grade on this guy. And the fact that they moved to 4 to go get him, I think that says a lot. That they coveted the guy that much that they feel like they could bring him in, work with him for a couple of years, and then see where he's at. In a couple of seasons.
We got a little research project we need to do, and I think you got the sourcing to pull it off. But we need to try and figure out. We keep talking about with the quarterbacks that S2 test.
Yeah.
We need to see, unless you already know, but we need to see, because we know Brock Purdy scored super high.
Sure did.
And the Niners loved that about him,
right,
where he was dang near perfect on that S2 cognitive test that it's really, really important for quarterbacks now throughout that draft process. They've moved away from the Wonderlic, and it's a different sort of test here. And so, and now we've seen some barriers on what's your minimum on that test to have a good idea of where you're going to be, performing as a quarterback in the NFL. Purdy was super high on it. I wonder where Trey Lance scored on that test.
Yeah, we could probably figure that out.
Yeah, I think we could figure that out. So I'm looking forward to that. And then, my gosh, just what an overall, just a crazy situation for the Niners where they get bailed out because of the Purdy thing.
Right.
But giving up all those picks and swinging and missing like that, it could go down as one of the single worst trades, maybe the worst trade in draft history. You go to Ditka and Ricky Williams and the Saints those years ago, and then after that, I'm struggling to find one worse.
Well, this is one, the egg on the face is with the 49ers. The egg on the face is not with the Cowboys. Cowboys just were in there to kind of pick up the pieces. They're getting a look at this guy. So, good for them. I like I said, Stephen Jones, Jerry Jones, Will McClay, we always laugh at them.
Mm-hmm.
The 24/7 comments.
Yes, I know.
They're playing 24/7 here now. This is something that is really kind of different from what they've done in the past. Their willingness to take draft capital, which they love doing. They love drafting. And now for them to use draft capital to go and get players, I think that it's different from what they've done in the past, but good for them.
Just over 2 hours to kick off Cowboys-Raiders preseason game number 3. The preseason and the pregame party rolls on. Coming up next, Behind Enemy Lines, we sit down with Raiders play-by-play man Jason Horowitz next right here on The Fan.
Spurs assistant coach.
Texaco with Techron, driving performance. And by Papa John's, the official pizza of the Dallas Cowboys. Papa John's, better ingredients, better pizza.
Mac Jones hands it off on a draw to Ramondre Stevenson, breaks out of a tackle at the 50, has the 45, breaks away from another tackle, pitches it backwards, and now Jacoby Myers spinning around. He throws it to Chandler Jones in midfield, and a stiff arm! Chandler Jones racing towards the end zone. He scores! Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
I can't believe what I just saw.
Again!
I can't believe what I just saw. This is unbelievable. Wow!
On the first night of Hanukkah, it's a miracle in Las Vegas.
Under 2 hours to kick off Cowboys and Raiders, and we are joined as we go behind enemy lines by the Raiders play-by-play voice, radio voice, who will be doing some TV as he's done all preseason long. It's Jason Horowitz, ladies and gentlemen. What a dang call that was. I remember that play. One of the craziest plays, walk-off fashion. Bill Belichick outsmarts himself, and there's Chandler Jones in the Raiders' victory, and you lost your voice on that play.
I did. I thank goodness 9 months later I have it back, which is good. I didn't know if that would ever come back. The funny thing is first of all, I don't think Bill Belichick had anything to do with that.
that was a brain fart.
In all fairness, but craziest thing is everyone's just because that goes viral because it's so emotional and it's so spur of the moment and it's like one of those once in a lifetime plays we'll never see again, or in my case ever call again, and it's so surreal. But everyone's like, oh, that's got to be the greatest call of your life. I'm like, no, I stunk. I lost my voice. Wasn't enough description. Didn't get enough Brad Sham in there. It wasn't. It was like I had two better calls in that game. But it's one of those things that Sean McDonough later that weekend texted me. He's like, "Oh, it's nice to see you have McDonough in you." Good, because people who remember like the Michigan State when the punter dropped the ball, he loses his voice. It cracks the whole thing. So it was pretty memorable first season. That was a highlight, certainly.
It was a kind of a season though of up and downs though for the Raiders. I mean, can you kind of walk? I mean, a lot of things, a lot of changes. The rosters and things like that. But talk about how the Raiders have kind of put the season behind them from last year.
So 15 of the 17 games were one score or were decided 2-minute warning or after. I think 13 of the 17 finished one score games. So you go from the year before where they were awesome in one score games to last year where, just they could not finish late in the fourth quarter. And, if you remember what happened the week before that Patriots game, they go to L.A., they're up 10-0, and Derek Carr throws an interception at the goal line maybe 15, 20 seconds before halftime. They lose to Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
I don't know. He'd gotten there 36 hours beforehand and on a 98-yard drive. So, all of that was part of the buildup. They had, the 20-point blown lead against the Cardinals in week 2 in overtime and the 17-point blown leads against Jacksonville and Kansas City. And it was just all the emotions of last season coming off the playoffs in 21. They bring in Devontae Adams. They bring in Chandler Jones. There's all this built up, hey, they're just going to be better, and it didn't live up to that. There wasn't enough depth on the roster. This year's team's different. You can tell across a lot of positions of importance. Offensive line, they brought everybody back from last year's offensive line that had the NFL's leading rusher. The defensive line, you draft Tyree Wilson, you draft Byron Young. We'll see both of them tonight, right? Early in you get some veterans, John Jenkins, some veterans who have been around this league. It's deeper. The competition is better. They're going to have some difficult decisions on Cutdown Day Tuesday, and I don't think they had that last year.
What have we seen? Texas Tech Red Raider. I mean, haven't gotten to see too much with some injuries.
So we were out at
Tyree Wilson, by the way, for the record.
Yeah, joint practices with the Rams. He got taken off NFI for the first one, but it was all individual drills. He didn't do any of the team practice with the Rams leading up to that game. Didn't play last week. This week he's been doing some team drills. He's had the pads on. It's been a different story. We're going to see him tonight. They have a plan, right? They knew he had the surgery in November, yet they also know how explosive he can be, right? I mean, you guys all saw it, whether it was at Texas A&M. I know there was a big recruit aspect, transfers to Texas Tech. And to lead the Big 12 in pressures and miss the last 3 games and still do that, that's a big deal. And then you throw the athletic traits and all those things. They have a plan for him. What it is, we'll see as the season goes along. But if he can have, some type of positive impact in the first half of the season, that's a big deal when you got Maxx Crosby who's becoming one of the best players in the NFL.
Yeah, that's the thing about with Maxx Crosby. So much like the scouts, media scouts missed on Maxx Crosby.
Yeah.
And you watch him play and you're like going, Oh,
I mean, in all fairness, he did go to Eastern Michigan.
But you know what? Then I'll remind you that Walter Payton went to school at Jackson State, and Jerry Rice went to Mississippi Valley.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to do this, go look at that tape. Go figure that out about these guys.
So calling games for CBS Sports Network, I've done a couple of Eastern Michigan games, and I did one in Ypsilanti. It was I don't know.
Was that
Wednesday
with the gray turf?
Yes. They call it the factory. They call it the factory.
Yeah,
and you know, Eastern Michigan's 8 miles from Ann Arbor, 8 miles from Michigan Stadium. You get maybe 733 people to a game. You know, I grew up in Michigan. That's my home state. I'm 45 minutes. Charlie Batch played there, but like nobody pays attention to Eastern Michigan.
Sure.
And, you know, Maxx was a good player, but it wasn't like when you get ready for that game, it's like, hey, this is the best player on the field. Everyone's going to – it wasn't. He was a really good player, and he certainly had some plays, but it wasn't like this guy that's going to be a first-round draft pick like Khalil Mack when he was in the Mack at Buffalo.
Buffalo, yeah, exactly.
Raiders play-by-play voice Jason Horowitz with us here on 105.3 The Fan, getting you set for Cowboys and Raiders. Another draftee, Aidan O'Connell. He will be, I presume, starting tonight.
That's the expectation.
He's taken over the preseason as the quarterback jewel, and brought us a draft man himself. Absolutely loved Aidan O'Connell. Has he been are you surprised what you've seen on the field, or has he been crushing it in practices throughout camp?
Eric, does Brian wear any shows that don't say draft show?
Yeah, no.
Does he wear any shows that say something else?
Yeah.
I am all about. I'm all about the publicity of it.
Watch him sag his pants. You'll see it right there on the undies
nice.
as well.
Do you have the underwear too?
Yeah.
Do you sell those online?
Full get up.
You can get them. Yes. Scouting retirement fund. That's what we'll have it for.
You know, Aidan O'Connell's a guy. I think some people, if you go back to day 3, because he was taken in the middle part of round 4.
Yeah.
So the early part on that Saturday, I think a lot of people were surprised that he went ahead of some of the quarterbacks he went ahead of. But this is a guy that the Raiders staff talked about really right away as someone that they appreciated his ability to take in difficult situations, his quick decision-making, his accuracy. Remember, 2021, he completed 71% of his passes. I mean, that's college numbers are going up, but that's still a ridiculous number.
Right.
And so they appreciated all of that. And Mick Lombardi, our offensive coordinator, told us a story today about they went out to, when he was still with the Patriots, they went out to work out Rondell Moore during that draft process. I think that was 2 years ago. Maybe that was 3 years ago. And he said, you know, hey, coaching staff's like, hey, look at this guy. You know, he hasn't started for us really yet, but he's going to be a guy you're going to like 2 years from now. And he's like, yeah, he spun it really well. Right. He was great. And then he came back 2 years later to work him out, and they ended up drafting him. So, you know, they have talked about what they've seen in practice, what they still want him to get better at. He's, you know, there's a lot of talk this week about will he be the backup? Will Brian Hoyer in his 15th year still be the backup? I don't know that decision. I certainly don't know that decision. I don't know if they are positive about it yet. But there's no denying how good and impressive he has been in the 2 preseason games against San Francisco and L.A. I mean, he has made great decisions. He's fit in balls right through tight windows that are tough to throw. And he's made guys look really good.
You know, I'll say this, Jason. The thing that I'm noticing, and it goes back to guys like Brock Purdy and others.
Yeah.
These guys that play 4 or 5 years. You know, and even the pandemic is, you know, the kid Robinson from UCLA, you know, that
DTR,
Cleveland, yeah.
I mean, he played like 6 years. You know,
Yeah.
we're seeing him. I think there's something to these guys that are having that ability to play all this time and getting a lot of starts.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, he is a guy, Aiden's a guy that was a walk-on at Purdue.
Sure.
I believe his only scholarship was Wheaton College. I think it's a D2 school in Illinois. And he decided to walk on at Purdue. He was 8th string is how the story goes. And so when you go from that to a guy that earns a scholarship, has all kinds of records where Drew Brees and Kyle Orton were great college stars and you know, we're from Texas and all that stuff, and you go and break those guys' records and you overcome all the adversity he overcame, and then he had a death in his family a couple weeks before the Big Ten championship game. Like, there's an appreciation that the teammates and the coaching staff had for Aidan O'Connell, and I think that has carried over to how the Raiders coaching staff views him, because his ability to handle everything they're throwing at him, even as simple as getting in a huddle and regurgitating the play call. Right. He never got in a huddle in West Lafayette.
Never.
So same type of thing.
Yeah.
Big-time confidence, too, repping that mustache the way he does. I mean, that takes a special kind of confidence.
Coach McDaniels does not love the mustache, but he's like, you know, if you're going to do it, go be you.
Yeah,
I think
dude,
we did a
be you.
segment about that on the radio one day, didn't we? His mustache.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't you bring that up?
We had plenty of talk about the mustache.
Well, he can't get rid of it now. Like Anthony Davis, when he went to the Hornets and he had the unibrow, right, or the Pelicans, I guess, and he had the unibrow.
Yeah.
Like that becomes your trademark. Like,
Right.
if Aidan O'Connell ever becomes a starting quarterback in the NFL, he's going to have shirts.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I saw him wearing the Farva. He's wearing the Super Troopers
Yes.
shirt because he looks like the doppelganger from Super
What
Troopers.
is it with Purdue and these like mustaches and beard? Because Kyle Orton had the neck beard.
Yeah,
he had the neck
But
beard.
that wasn't like I saw Aidan in the lobby today. It's trimmed to look like that.
Yeah.
Kyle Orton's neck beard was just dirty.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't trimmed. It wasn't
we
like
had Kyle
it was
around here for a
grimy,
year.
dude.
Kyle's a lot of fun.
Oh, I
Yeah,
believe
big
it.
time.
Kyle
Big
at the Christmas party is a blast.
Oh, I
He
guarantee
is-
it. Boilermakers for everyone.
Yeah, he's got the bottle and he's the bartender walking around.
I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. We're going behind enemy lines here inside the Brad Sham radio booth with the voice of the Raiders, Jason Horowitz. Now, from one quarterback to another, Jimmy G, obviously all eyes on him. What has this offseason been like for him? He recovers from the foot injury. How sharp has he looked?
He's been great. You know, like there have been moments in camp where, as has been reported, you know, you guys have seen this. Like everybody's tweeting and writing stories about interceptions in 11-on-11 and 7-on-7.
Oh,
Like,
we
they
live
actually
that
matter,
every day, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's like people are keeping tallies of completions and incompletions in these practices. So, like, it's overblown, right? But the thing that has been talked about the most about Jimmy Garoppolo has been his ability to relate to his new teammates, his ability to remember and take in what he had with Josh McDaniels in New England, but also add what he did really well with Kyle Shanahan, which is a completely different offensive system in San Francisco, and then merging the two together. So the knock on Jimmy Garoppolo has never been his ability, and it's never been his ability to win and lead. It's always been questions of like, hey, this decision or that decision. But the positive has always been, look at what he does bouncing back from all of that.
Right.
And I think we've seen the same thing in camp. I mean, if he makes a bad play, the next series is a good one. So I think everybody's expecting, as long as he can stay healthy, this is going to be a good year. With
Josh Jacobs, with his situation
Yeah.
and all that, was it just a matter of time, or was this really somebody dug in?
I don't know. I mean, by all accounts, everybody stayed calm with it. You know, I think there was an expectation that, like a lot of franchise tag players who are veterans, you know, maybe why go through the preseason when you don't necessarily have to. But then again, you saw Saquon Barkley sign a deal that got a little bit more in guaranteed money. And frankly, Brian, I don't know about you, but like I didn't even realize that happened.
Didn't
Franchise
either.
tag players, if you sign or you don't sign, they don't offer you more money. But
Yeah.
now it's hey,
a
we
common
can give
thing.
you
Yeah,
more
we
now.
can give you more, right.
And you know, and I haven't seen the specific details, and I don't know if they've been released. I know it said up to $12 million, but it sounds like his guarantees are more than what Saquon Barkley got.
Right.
And frankly, guys, I mean, he deserves it. I mean, Saquon's certainly, you know, looked upon as a bigger threat out of the backfield as a receiver, but Josh had 53 catches last year. That's not a small number. And there's one that stands out in Seattle. Everybody remembers the 86-yard overtime run to win that game. He had a one-handed falling down grab on a wheel route that went for 30 yards to help them get in position to win that game. So, like, he is a threat that has worked hard and deserved every bit of it. And, you know, we'll see what happens. Guys that have that many touches the next year, historically, you saw it with DeMarco Murray, right? Historically, don't come back and have the same type of year, but I bet they have a plan in place to make sure he doesn't have 390 touches again.
Yeah, you can throw the ball to Devontae Adams a little bit.
Sure,
there,
or Zamir White, right? I mean,
Yeah.
last year's fourth-round pick, we're talking about Aidan O'Connell today, but last year's Zamir White, there was a lot of talk about what he's going to be for this team.
Absolutely.
And he's shown that in training
He
camp
sure
this
has.
year. He is a guy that is going to run over people in this league, and I bet he's going to have a chance to do that this year too.
Jason, you're a super beast, my friend. He is the Raiders radio play-by-play man. He's in the TV booth tonight. Jason, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
There he goes, Jason Horowitz, Raiders play-by-play voice right here in the Brad Sham radio booth as we get you set for game number 3 of the preseason. It's the finale, Cowboys and Raiders, and the pregame show is brought to you by Miller Lite, the only beer of the Dallas Cowboys. It is Miller time. Let's stick it right here and bring in our favorite quarterback, Babe Laufenberg. What's he have to say about Trey Lance next right here on The Fan?
Is your workplace on top of its game?
10 minutes to kick off Cowboys Raiders preseason game number 3. It is the finale, and we got plenty to get to in regards to this game, what it means. The stakes are high for a lot of individuals. We'll get you the Coach's Corner with Brad Shem, his exclusive one-on-one with head coach Mike McCarthy coming up next hour. Christy Scales joins us here in just a few minutes, but right now we welcome in Babe Laufenberg, the quarterback of the broadcast. And Babe, we got a lot of stuff to get into here, but I want to start with a little throwback situation that I discovered something earlier this week about our friend Moose Johnston. He gave you credit, Babe, for the nickname Moose. Now, I don't know if this is common knowledge, but I discovered this, and I needed to hear it from you.
Well, it's common knowledge between Moose and me, that's for sure. But, yeah, he was very quickly. It was we were teammates at the time, and the running backs were coming out. And we had all these 5'9" running backs, Junior Tolatasi, Paul Palmer. Anyway, and here comes DJ, 6'2", 245, and DJ always walked on his toes, so he looked even bigger. So I just said to Troy, I said, look at DJ. I said, the guy is a moose among the deer. And it somehow just took off. I mean, we give a lot of people nicknames, right? But somehow that took off, and I remember Darryl saying he knew he was no longer Darryl when John Madden referred to him as Moose.
Dude, that's phenomenal. Just one sort of throwaway line, observation at practice from Babe Laufenberg, and boom, it becomes historical.
Eric,
that's fantastic,
there's so
Babe.
much about me. There's so much about me you don't know. We need to sit down and have coffee one day.
Agreed. I look forward to the day. All right, Babe Laufenberg with us here inside the Brad Sham radio booth, getting you set for Cowboys and Raiders. Lots of quarterback discussion to be had here. We got Aidan O'Connell, of course. We'll get to him. But Trey Lance is a Cowboy, Babe. What do you make?
Wow. I was at the gym yesterday. I get off the elliptical. I get a text from Peyton Russell, our Cowboys game day radio producer, and it says, wow, Trey Lance. And I thought, okay, wow, Trey Lance what? Did he get arrested? Did 49ers name him the starter? And then, of course, you go, what? So, and I don't mean what in the sense of what are the Cowboys thinking. To me, it was a heck of a deal. You give up a 4th rounder for a guy that you really have under control for 2 more years here. And I don't know where his career is going to go. I will say this. He is such a pup in terms of playing quarterback. Matter of fact, he had the fewest pass attempts of any quarterback ever taken in the first round since like 1950, right? Mm-hmm. So who knows where his career is going to go. Now, I don't know what happened in San Francisco. I mean, obviously there were injuries, there were some other things. Brock Purdy came on, all the above, but I mean, to give up what they gave up to get him, to move up in the draft to number 3 and discard him after 2 years, that says a little something. But I was all for, trust me, I was all for the Cowboys. I said, hurrah. When you tell me they gave up a 4th rounder for a guy who was a 3rd pick in the draft 2 years ago.
Hey, Babe, we're kind of seeing some information tonight that Dak Prescott might be calling the plays in this one. That Mike McCarthy usually gives it to an assistant in that final preseason, but Dak Prescott is going to be the one calling the plays. So are we interested in seeing what Dak's gotten tapped for this tonight with Will Grier?
Well, I love it, but expect about 70 passes. I mean, you let a
I was
quarterback
about to
call
say,
the plays.
Will Grier's going to get showcased here tonight.
Yeah, you might as well tell the running back, look, you can go out there if you want, but you're not going to touch the ball. That'll be very interesting, and I imagine it's just to go through the mental gymnastics for Dak, if that is the case, of relaying the play call and getting a feel for what that play caller goes through. And I am a firm believer in any walk of life, any business, everybody should do the other person's job for a day. So you get an appreciation for what they have to go through, right? Because we're always, hey, why isn't this done? Why isn't this? Where is this? And you have no idea of what that person is doing. Now, there's a couple things that I say, okay, we shouldn't do. Sword swallowers? No. Okay, pilots? No, don't say, oh, well, let's get up and see what that captain goes through on that 757.
Yeah.
But
Brandon Cooks could.
But so for Dak to do it, I think it'd be great. I think it'd be awesome.
All right, well, maybe
he'll mix in some screens.
Yeah, maybe
he'll
mix
get
in
the
some
screen
screens.
game going here
Yeah,
a little bit.
yeah. I'm trying to find a way, Babe. If you want to host the pregame show for week 1, I'll go ahead and sit in your chair, and we can, we'll give it a run that way. What do you say?
I will tell you this. It would be fun because I would say, oh, man, there's a lot more goes into this. And you might say, I don't like working with Brad.
Babe Laufenberg with us here on the Fan, getting you set for Cowboys and Raiders. Now, did Babe Laufenberg ever get the opportunity to put the OC headset on at any point throughout his career and dial up some plays?
I did not. I mean, back in the day when you signaled into plays, I would have a headset on and the call would come through basically my headset and me, and I would signal him. You remember those days, right, where you signaled to the quarterback the play. So I guess technically I was calling the play, but trust me, I never said, I don't like that one. I'm going to go with this one here.
Yeah, you take the call in the huddle.
I was not secure enough in my job to do that.
Yeah, none of us were for that for sure.
Yeah.
But, Babe, is there a position that you might be focusing in on tonight that when you get down to your final cuts, you're going to okay, I feel like I got this team kind of whittled down to where it needs to be, but is there a position that you're looking at, you're saying, okay, I got to keep an eye on these 3 or 4 guys tonight?
Yeah, it's interesting because I look at a guy like Simi Fehoko, right? He's on the bubble. Whatever he does here tonight, they've already made their mind up on Simi Fehoko. I can guarantee you. He's been here 3 years, right?
Sure.
If he has 2 drops or 2 touchdowns, it's not going to sway their opinion of Simi Fehoko. Now, there are some other guys, young guys I want to see. Mazi Smith, if you stripped the number off him, if you let everybody, remember they had a scrimmage here a couple of years ago when McCarthy did not have numbers on the players?
First year.
If you took the numbers off, he would have a hard time making your team. I mean, he had 33 snaps last week against Seattle. Dennis Houston had more tackles. Literally, he's a wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he looks slow off the ball, which has been well documented. And how that happens, I'm not sure, because he's never more than about 1.5 feet away from the ball. But man, he's got a long way to go. Now, I never use the word bust. Give me 3 years. He's got a long way to go. And we can talk about he was in a different defense, read and react to Michigan, but your job's to make tackles, right?
Right.
And he's not even in the play. So I'm going to be sneaking my eyes in there and looking for some improvement from their number 1 draft pick.
Now, and is that something you'd want to see him, do you want to get as much run out of Mazi Smith tonight? Are you looking to see, as many snaps as possible?
I think so. You're certainly not saving him. It sounds like I'm down on him. Trust me, he's 2 weeks or 2 games into his NFL.
We're all in the same boat.
Yeah, okay. I mean, so I hate when people say, you said he's a bust. I didn't say that, but he needs to play because right now he's not an NFL player. The way he played those first 2 games, that's not a guy you want to line up and take 30 snaps against New York Giants on Sunday night in their opener. So, you hope, obviously, that each game these guys improve a little bit. You see it with some guys. We saw it with Jalen Tolbert, right? Just kind of rush things that first year. He settled down. Anyway, so that's kind of what I'm looking for tonight. The one guy that I'd like to see production from, because he is a first-round pick, is Mazi Smith.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Babe Laufenberg with us here on the Fan, getting you set for Cowboys and Raiders. Preseason game number 3. Will Grier, how do you handle this from a quarterback position here? There's nothing he can do on the field tonight to keep his job with the Cowboys. So how do you think he handles this?
Now, it's interesting because, he knows he's gone. And to go out there and get your mindset that I'm going to go out and compete and play, he will do that, but that had to be a little crushing to get the news for him yesterday and then go out and play. I remember, I'm going to turn back the dial here. 1986, I'm in Washington. Joe Gibbs, we would meet quarterbacks, obviously, and Gibbs ran the offense. He was the play caller. He was the Mike McCarthy at that time. And he would talk for 5 minutes about Doug Williams before almost every quarterback meeting, have his coffee, and Doug was just the greatest. And he had him in Tampa. He was not the head coach at Tampa, but he was the quarterback coach down there. Loved Doug Williams. Wanted Doug to marry his daughters if he had some. Wanted to adopt him. It was Doug. 1986, I'm in Washington. USFL folds during training camp. And guess who comes to the Washington Commanders?
Who's that?
That would be Doug Williams.
Yeah.
So Joe Gibbs comes up to me and says, okay, okay, this isn't, there's going to be competition. And I just want to say, Joe, I've heard about the guy for 3 years, and he was a first-round pick. Yeah. Save it, so that was my situation of, oh, gosh, okay, well, I'm done here. And I was, as it turned out.
Babe, these you mentioned about his situation and all, but like, do you like the fact that these teams are able to keep all these players? That are you okay with the cut being just one big cut, or would you rather it just kind of go back to what it was?
Well, as you know, they're doing it only so they can field a team here. There's going to be about 40 Cowboys that will not even put a helmet on or shoulder pads. So they're just doing it to play these games. They're doing it for no other reason, to keep those 90 around. And the problem was when they were cutting it to, gosh, what did it get to? Like kind of 75 maybe?
75, yeah.
75, and then it went to the 50. They didn't have enough players to play the game because they didn't want to expose any of the starters. So it went to 90. It does give these young men an opportunity to play another game, which is great. Any playing time you get out there. We're going to see Hunter Lipke. He may have 20 carries tonight, right? Sure. The running back. They're not going to play.
Might be the Hager-Slats Big Play Award winner tonight after tonight.
Yeah. Hey, it may be a 4-yard run, but yes, it will be the play of the game. But good for them getting an opportunity to get out here.
What do you think of the Deuce Vaughn situation? He's obviously lit it up in these preseason games. So much hype surrounding him. Do you need to see much of him at all tonight, babe?
I don't think so. Not at that position at running back. It's just not really a technique position, as you know. But I will say that you go back to the Seattle game, right? Everybody loved him. Had the 14-yard touchdown run. And trust me, I'm a Deuce Vaughn fan. I think everyone is. He had 5 carries for 14 yards. 14 of them came on 1 carry. So he had 4 carries that totaled 0 yards. He had 1 reception for -1, and he whiffed on a pass protection blitz. And the guy that beat him was a rookie free agent. It wasn't Jamal Adams. And that was the play that led to Will Grier getting flushed out of the pocket and throwing the interception. Now,
yeah.
I'm not saying he caused the interception. Quarterback is always the last line of defense. But he got beat right now. So I know everybody loves him, and it's great, and he's 5'5", and everybody loves the little guy. But, he's got some work to do. He's got some work to do.
Babe, as I'm trying to kind of reduce this roster, are we in agreement about 3 tight ends, 4 tight ends? I mean, I know with John Stevens last week getting injured and Stephen Jones kind of coming out and saying, oh, he had the team made. Does that still, was the plan still to have 4 tight ends? And does Sean McEwen make this by default as we speak?
Yeah, you always get in there, as you well know, linebackers, tight ends, running backs. Those are your core special teams guys, at least the bottom end of the running backs and the bottom end of the wide receivers and the linebackers. So, you get in there, and I know everybody I want 4 of these, I want 4 of those, I want 4 of those. That's great. But now we got 62 guys on the active roster, and they don't allow that. So I kind of I don't get too caught up in going through all that. And the funny thing, too, now with the practice squad, you have so many guys at your disposal to bring up, to elevate. If let's say you keep 3 tight ends, you get a tight end hurt, boom, you got that guy in the practice squad. Most of these guys, I know everybody says, well, if we expose this guy, he's going to get picked up. Yeah. Well, every other team has that same guy.
Right.
Everybody on that other team has that 4th tight end, but, if we expose him, he's going to get picked up. And they typically don't.
What do you think about Aidan O'Connell, this Raiders quarterback, the rookie? He's been lighting it up in preseason. We'll see a fair amount of him tonight. Have you come away pretty impressed?
Yeah, and he played a lot of football, obviously, at Purdue. I have been impressed. I look at all the quarterbacks. I don't look at all the positions and all the players coming into the draft, but I do look at the quarterbacks. You like what he does. You like what he did there. He's not a running threat, so they won't have the same issue they had with the backup for Seattle last week, trying to chase him down. But here's the thing, too. He drew interest from Ivy League schools coming out of high school. Of course, he was ready to go to D3 to go play with his brother. And Jeff Brom, who was the head coach of Purdue, offered him a preferred walk-on basically at the last minute. And that's how he got to Purdue and worked his way up the food chain there. But I think with Aidan O'Connell and all these guys in this draft, the quarterbacks drafted, Bill Parcells used to say, everybody's afraid of missing out on the next Peyton Manning. So they overdraft these guys in the first round. Maybe Trey Lance is a good example of that.
Yeah.
But after what Brock Purdy did last year, I firmly believe everybody is afraid of missing out on the next Brock Purdy. That guy that isn't at the top of the draft, but we think he can play. And when you look at the guys taken, Stetson Bennett taken in the 4th round, Jake Haener taken in the 4th, Clayton Tune taken in the 5th. There are a whole bunch of guys in that 4th, 5th rounds where I think in years past, if we hadn't seen Brock Purdy do what Brock Purdy did last year, I think those guys would have been pushed a good 2-3 rounds down.
Yeah.
And I see a little bit of that in Aidan O'Connell. But I have been impressed with his preseason and coming out of Purdue. And, I do agree. We're going to get a good long look at him tonight.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Babe Laufenberg, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for the time, Babe, as always, and have a great call.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Yes, sir. There he goes, Babe Laufenberg, right here on the official pregame show of America's Team. It's big, it's good, and it's only for Cowboys fans. The Cowboys special from Papa John's, a large one-topping pizza for only $9.99. Order today. Better ingredients, better pizza. Papa John's, the official pizza of the Dallas Cowboys, and the official sideline reporter of the Dallas Cowboys, Christy Scales, joins us next right here on The Fan.
Bell.
situation crazy. He gets traded. Is he already here in the building? What's the status of Trey Lance right now?
Not in town yet, so he will not be here tonight and flying into North Texas later this evening. So thought that it might be a situation where if he were in town that he might be able to be on the sideline and listen to the play calls coming in and just get the terminology and everything, but or at least hear one game as it's called. But of course it's Dak Prescott, as you've been talking about, not Mike McCarthy calling the plays, so I think it's all a moot point anyway. As for Dak calling the plays, I just talked with Brian Schottenheimer, the Cowboys offensive coordinator, as he was walking out onto the field during the commercial break literally just a minute ago, and I said, Babe Laufenberg thinks that a quarterback is going to call 70 pass plays tonight. What do you think? And he says, would you expect anything differently from a quarterback? We're going to have to remind him to call some run plays. So, yeah, I think it's going to be fun. But the point about Dak doing play calling, it's not unusual for Mike McCarthy to, late in the preseason, to hand over the reins. In fact, you might remember that Doug Nussmeier did it, was it last year or year before? But and then there was the one game, and that was because of a COVID situation where Joe Witt called the defensive play calls for Dan Quinn, who had to leave the building a couple hours before kickoff when he tested positive for COVID. But Dan Quinn is calling the defense tonight. No changes there, but Will Grier is going to have Dak in his headset tonight calling the plays. But Dak actually, they've been preparing for this. Dak actually called the plays in practice this week, including using the walkie-talkie in Thursday's walkthrough.
Scoop, what's going to be different about personnel in week 3 that we haven't seen the previous 2 weeks?
Well, you won't see Cooper Rush. It's going to be Will Grier all the way through tonight. And I actually saw someone, a fan, post on social media, what's Will Grier got to play for tonight? I mean, they're giving his job to Trey Lance. And it's like Will Grier and all these other guys, they have everything to play for, or they got their careers to play for, and not only hopefully to be signed by the Cowboys practice squad, because you can have 16 players, and so that would be Wednesday when teams can start signing players to the practice squad, but there's scouts from 31 other teams that are going to be watching this, so Will has his career to play for, as do so many other guys. But there are some there were a few key backups or starters that did play the first 2 preseason games that are not going to play tonight. That includes linebacker Damone Clark. That includes Deron Bland. On offense, you will not see Jalen Tolbert tonight. He has made the team, so Tolbert is not playing, and you won't see Kevontae Turpin. So with Turpin not playing tonight and not being available for returns, we're expecting that the backup wide receiver Jalen Cropper is going to get the vast majority of work on kickoff and punt returns. And then some other things tonight you're going to have to see, because of the injury situation at linebacker, without Malik Jefferson, without DeMarvion Overshown, Tyrus Wheat and Isaiah Land, and kind of that hybrid type of thing. So they had already been sharing meeting time, working with defensive ends and linebackers, so they actually spent more time. Both are listed at defensive end, but they spent more time these past couple weeks in the linebacker room so that they can be ready to go. And then the other thing is, look for TJ Bass to get more work at right guard. So he was taking the first team reps this week, and Josh Ball, who had been playing right guard and getting all those snaps while Zach Martin had his contract holdout, Ball is going to get some work at backup right tackle and at backup guard.
Fantastic. Christy Scales, ladies and gentlemen, bringing us all the scoops here on the official pregame show of America's Team. So does that mean we'll get a little Deuce Vaughn tonight?
I think we'll get some, yes. It's my understanding that he will play tonight. Of all the things, one thing that they didn't put down for who the starting running back is, we haven't seen that yet. So,
okay.
But like Rico Dowdle, one of the things that he does as well as play running back, he and Malik Davis, they take turns at personal protector on punts. And so that's going to continue to be the case tonight. And basically, special teams is going to be by committee tonight. I mentioned Cropper for Turpin, but as to who's at gunner and who's personal protector, I mean, it is basically all hands on deck for John Fossil tonight. And we know that Brandon Aubrey, the rookie kicker, the former soccer player, he only has the one field goal attempt through these first 2 preseason games, the 29-yarder which he made. So it'd be nice to see if he could get some extra work. But when you look at there, it's a 90-man, you can have up to 90 players in training camp and preseason, and out of all those guys, 47 of them are not playing tonight.
Wow.
So yeah, you're going to see a lot of Isaac Alarcón, and you're going to see Alec Lindstrom in the second half, and but it's a big night for all of these guys because they're really maybe 3 or 4 spots on the 53-man that are probably still open, but there are those 16 spots on the practice squad. And remember, they're competing not just against their teammates here with the Cowboys, but the players from the 31 other teams who will also be waived this week. That the Cowboys, they'll be looking to pluck players from other rosters. And I'm curious, I hope that the backup offensive linemen have a great day today, because I'm not sure that the swing tackle or even one of the backup interior linemen is on the 90-man roster for the Cowboys right now. I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys look hard elsewhere.
Scoop, in the last couple of minutes we have with you, is something going on with the officials? Are we going to work a crew around and get some different spots here?
Yeah, so the NFL uses preseason to do different things with the officiating crew. So what's going to happen at the beginning of the fourth quarter tonight, what they're going to do, there are normally 7 officials on the field, and there'll be 7 for tonight. But at the start of the fourth quarter, they're going to practice working a man down. So Scott Novak, the referee, is going to step aside, and Mark Stewart, who is the line judge, will be taking over as the referee. And instead of having 2 officials on the line of scrimmage, the down judge and the line judge will move behind the quarterback along with the umpire to be behind the quarterback in the offensive backfield, and it'll be just the down judge on the line of scrimmage. So they're practicing it in preseason so that if there were an injury situation or a sickness in the regular season, these NFL officiating crews will have had a little bit of practice in the preseason.
All right, fantastic stuff. As always, Cowboys sideline reporter Christy Scales live on the turf at AT&T Stadium. Christy, thanks for the time, and we'll catch up with you next hour.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Eric.
Yes, ma'am. There she goes, Christy Scales. Ladies and gentlemen, as we inch closer and closer to a Cowboy kickoff, Cowboys and Raiders, Jerry Jones just met with the media, and he's talking about Trey Lance. He's quoted as saying, "We didn't want them to hang up. We wanted him," talking about the negotiations and how quickly the negotiations progressed with the 49ers for Trey Lance yesterday. So that might have been a one phone call situation. Hey, we want him, and we're willing to go as high as a 4th-round pick to get him. Boom, that seals the deal. I know the Niners wanted to get him into the AFC if possible, but the Cowboys wanted him bad enough to give them the best compensation with the 4th-round pick, and so they end up getting him. And then they asked him about whether or not Trey Lance could be helping this Cowboys team in 2023. We've discussed that earlier. Is there opportunities for him with his legs or what have you to, have some packages for him? But he says, quote, "Candidly, I don't want to plan on, count on, or wish for help from him this year."
There you go.
So if that's going to be the case, and that makes a ton of sense, and as the season progresses, who knows how things develop and what opportunities arise where maybe there are, packages and things where you could get Trey Lance on the field. But this definitely seems like much more of a big picture move. You have him under contract for the next 2 years.
Yeah, that's the deal.
On cheap money.
Yep.
So he ends up being your backup quarterback. And then he also talked about Dak Prescott calling plays tonight, as we mentioned there with Christy. He says, I think we may find that he's found his calling.
There you go.
Old Dak Prescott. And Christy giving us the news that sort of all week long, Dak has been the one pulling the strings and calling the plays as the OC. So that's going to be fun. I'm excited to see that dynamic. And even Mike McCarthy was like, yeah, you're probably going to be dialing up a lot of passing plays tonight, which is great for Will Grier, who's looking to earn a gig, and all these wide receivers. I mean, the Jalen Brookses of the world and the sick, are they going to keep 6 wide receivers?
Right.
So the passing
and
game
you get to see the offensive line, see if they can hold up in this thing too.
Yeah, TJ Bass starting at right guard.
Right.
Do you like him on either side?
I don't think it's a problem either side you play him on. I really don't. I think he's shown he's been more than a gamer in these opportunities he's had. Maybe not a great practice player, but man, when he's got an opportunity to play, he doesn't give up much. He does a good job of working with the centers, working with the tackles on the twist stunts and stuff like that. He's been pretty aware of things that have gone on. Hasn't had any major busts, so more opportunity for him.
Yeah, and Josh Ball's coming off his best game as a Cowboy.
Yes, by far.
And he'll be playing a little bit of tackle and stuff like that tonight. So the offensive line, so much to watch for tonight. And then, of course, we'll get a little bit of Deuce Vaughn. How about Turpin? He's already locked it up. Tolbert's already locked it up. These guys don't even have to step on the field tonight. And that's great when you're the guys that need the reps and you're trying to make plays. You're like, sweet, I don't have somebody that's already going to be making the roster taking any snaps away from me. So this is going to be fun for a lot of these guys. No question about it. We'll see Will Grier just throwing the ball all around the yard. And once again, Dak Prescott, he will be calling the plays tonight. So that's going to be a fun storyline to monitor all throughout the game. Coming up in the next hour, we got the Coach's Corner, the exclusive one-on-one voice of the Cowboys, Brad Sham, with head coach Mike McCarthy. So looking forward to that conversation and much more as we're just over 60 minutes to kick off here at AT&T Stadium. We'll preview the matchup next right here on The Fan.
It's big.
Pre-kickoff, the pregame party continues right here in the Brad Sham radio booth inside of AT&T Stadium. No place we'd rather be. The third preseason game, the finale. We're getting to the regular season as quickly as possible, but decisions have to be made in the meantime, and I look forward to chopping it up with the Super Bowl champion, Brian Broaddus, as always. Broaddus, happy game day to you, sir. Let's go ahead and dive into the preview. Brought to you by Sleep Number, the official sleep and wellness partner of the Dallas Cowboys. So much going on off the field with the Trey Lance stuff. We just got word Dak Prescott will be the one calling plays tonight from the sideline as Will Grier gets a full 4 quarters to audition for the other 31 teams as Trey Lance has now taken his spot on the roster. Trey Lance not yet in the building, but we got football. What are you watching for tonight?
Well, with Dak calling plays, it will be very interesting to see the plan of attack that he has. I'm sure they don't have an extensive playbook. There'll be, he'll have some parameters and stuff that he can work in, but he's got to be very mindful of, it's kind of a strange situation, to be honest with you. Here's guys' livelihoods on the line, and you have a quarterback who is your starting quarterback is calling plays, and it kind of is it's kind of like wow, as a player, how do you feel about that if you're Simi Fehoko? Or how do you feel about it if, you're one of these guys, trying to make this team, a Dennis Houston or a Malik Davis or somebody like that? How do you feel if, maybe the offensive linemen don't get affected by that, but, you would kind of like to believe that my livelihood is on, in the balance.
And we're all taking this as serious as we would anything else.
Yeah, but taking this as seriously as possible. And,
I hear you.
And that's to me, that would be the unfortunate thing that, I think it's a nice, kind of a neat thing to do. But if you're one of those guys that's on the bubble, do you feel like, well, man, my fate was in the quarterback's hands tonight, calling ball plays?
For sure. That's a fair question. And I do know the Raiders are going to have a different play caller tonight for them as well.
Mick Lombardi, my buddy from, Mike Lombardi's son is going to, Mick and Matt are the two, the brothers that work with the Raiders. And Mickey is the offensive coordinator, but, they're Josh McDaniels calls plays. So Mickey's going to get to call the plays tonight. I'm excited for him to get that opportunity. But again, that's coaches calling plays. And using the pass, we've seen, Mike McCarthy handed over to, to someone else. I would have been okay with Brian Schottenheimer calling plays tonight and stuff like that, just to kind of get a feel for like, okay, how's he going to call the game? What does he deem important to see tonight to try and help some of these guys make the team? Jalen Brooks, guys like that you're kind of, you're kind of having to make a decision about.
And we've seen a little bit of these starters in the first 2 preseason games: Deron Bland, Damone Clark, Osa Digizua. We've seen Jalen Tolbert, Kevontae Turpin. Don't expect to see any of those guys tonight. We should get a little bit of Deuce Vaughn, but a lot of tonight is going to be the young guys looking to make this roster. And one of those guys on the other side of the field is Aidan O'Connell, quarterback out of Purdue that you liked quite a bit in this previous draft. The Raiders take him in the 4th round, and he's been lighting it up in the preseason. So he's going to give the defense a pretty dang good look tonight.
Absolutely he will, because he's one of these guys that, when you watched him play at Purdue, and Mike McCarthy really liked him. When you were starting to hear some whispers coming out of the Cowboys war room pre-draft, when they got down to the quarterbacks, there were people saying, hey, this Mike McCarthy really likes Aidan O'Connell, and if they got to a certain point in the draft, that maybe Aidan O'Connell would be a guy that they would select. And, I was kind of like we were working the draft show, I was like keeping an eye, okay, where's that point in the round where you get to Aidan O'Connell? And, the Raiders went in there early and got it done. So that's cool. Good for the Raiders. But you're right. He has done a fine job of coming in here, learning the offense, making quality throws, leading his team to points,
pushing the ball down
the field. So yeah, this Cowboy rush and secondary will be tested by his ability to throw the football tonight.
All right, that's the perfect transition as we go inside the numbers here, brought to you by Papa John's, the official pizza of the Dallas Cowboys. Better ingredients, better pizza. It is Papa John's. You mentioned that Cowboy pass rush. Inside the numbers on Isaiah Land, who is an undrafted rookie free agent out of Florida A&M. He's 6'3", 225. He He is a sack machine. He's been all over the place, getting in the backfield and flustering these quarterbacks through the first couple of preseason games here for the Cowboys. We'll get a good look at him tonight. Isaiah Lamb currently tied for third among all edges in total pressures thus far this preseason with 8, and his pass rush win rate, his pressure rate, all these different things have been extremely impressive through the first 2 preseason games. I'm fired up for that guy. I know there's a lot on the line for him tonight, but what about Mazi Smith? Didn't like what we saw from him last week. What do you hope to see from Mazi tonight?
Yeah, you mentioned Isaiah Lamb, and I'm with you on that. I'd like to see Junior Fehoko. Junior Fehoko is going to make this team because of his
status, fourth round pick,
sponsorship. Maybe Dan Quinn put a lot into that one. That was Dan Quinn going out, doing the workout, finding the player, finding some things about the player that he really liked.
Did he flash at all last week?
I think there was a little of the get off coming off the ball, but yeah, let's see him be a little bit more. Let's see him with the flash, with a little bit more just being disruptive, maybe a tackle behind the line, maybe a couple of pressures. He's going to get a lot of opportunity in this game. But yeah, Mazi Smith, with Mazi, I just want to see him get off the ball with a little bit, bring his feet, get off the ball, attack, play on the opponent's side of the line of scrimmage.
Is he thinking too much?
I think there's I just feel like that he's, and I say this and I'm serious, I think he's trapped somewhere between Michigan technique and Dallas Cowboys technique.
Yep.
And it's just kind of like every time that he might do the Dallas Cowboys technique one time and then, okay, there you go, there's a good flash. And then he'll revert back to Michigan technique. And sometimes these players, when they're struggling, they will revert back to things that they know will work. Mm-hmm. And I think he's struggling with that right now.
We're under 60 minutes to kick off inside the Brad Sham radio booth here at AT&T Stadium. Let's get you tonight's Coach's Corner with the voice of the Cowboys, Brad Sham. His exclusive one-on-one with Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy is coming up next. You're listening to the Dallas Cowboys radio network.
Cowboys football and
AT&T Stadium. Broadus, Dak Prescott's calling the plays. We assumed he's just going to be airing this thing out tonight for his wide receivers and for Will Grier to put on a nice show here in front of Cowboys Nation. But he walked into the building with a red number 15, Ezekiel Elliott, Ohio State Buckeyes. Maybe that's a sign. Maybe that's a sign, Broadus, that he's gonna hand that ball off a couple of times tonight.
So if you're thinking if he'd have come in like in a just
like a CD Lamb Oklahoma Sooner jersey,
you
know, or a Dez Oklahoma State, then that would be the cherry on top for we're throwing the ball 70 times tonight.
I was kind of thinking of any one of these quarterbacks that played through history that like Heisman Trey. Where's my guys down like in the University of Houston?
Keenum? Yeah,
well, Keenum, all those guys down there that
just throwing the ball a million times, racking up all the yards.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it'll be. I could say I'm interested to see what kind of rhythm he gets the offense in. You know, does he set things up to try and is he trying to interested in like seeing how these guys are going to perform? Is it going to be, hey, I'm going to run the ball, I'm going to throw, or I'm going to throw it, I'm going to run it. You know, I mean, I'm just interested to see how he tries to stay ahead of the chains as a play caller. And can Will Grier and can this offensive line protect enough for him to win he's throwing the ball? And can they open up some holes, for these backs to run? I'm interested. I want to see if he can stay ahead of the chains as he's calling these plays.
Well, the man that's usually going to be calling the plays for the Cowboys during the regular season, head coach Mike McCarthy. He's standing by live right now with the voice of the Cowboys, Brad Sham, for tonight's Coach's Corner. Brad, take it away, sir.
Fellas, thanks. So I know that this is you've been looking forward to because of the young guys who are going to get to play, but the headlines have been stolen by the trade that was made last night. So what are your thoughts, even though it has nothing to do with tonight, about Trey Lance?
Well, the biggest thing is, it was an opportunity to, trade for a quality prospect. I think you have to recognize, not only Trey for his time out there in San Francisco, but, there's a lot of work that goes into these drafts. And, I think when you get to these spots, when these opportunities present itself, where, because it's been relatively quick, as far as his time in San Francisco, you got to really trust your draft grades. And that's really what this came down to is, we just saw this as a opportunity of high value. So, then there's the other side of it spectrum. And obviously it's the personal part of it because you are connected to your quarterbacks in the quarterback room. And, and it's been a great room, and Will has done a tremendous job, particularly, making the steps from last year to this year that he needed to make. So, I mean, this is the business part of it, but yeah, when these opportunities present themselves, you have to definitely look at them.
You brought up the part that interests me the most in the short term. There'll be plenty of time to talk about how Trey Lance factors in and figures in. I immediately thought of Will Grier, who now knows there's not a place for him here, except, oh, by the way, you're going to play the whole game tonight. What do you think will go through his mind?
Well, I mean, I made when the decision was made to make the trade. So, and that's what I think of him, personally. But he's prepared for this opportunity. I mean, this is a big night for him, and and that's all I really ask of him is, just to make sure you get through the process of it last night and today, just to take advantage of a great opportunity because he's earned this opportunity to play all four quarters, and I just want him to go out and take another step because if you look at week 1, week 2, I mean he's really improved with every opportunity that he's been given since last year. So I really want him to succeed tonight and like I said, these type of situations they're business situations. I've been through this before in Green Bay. Ron Wolf did this for back in the 90s, so I'm familiar with this process. And the quarterback position is the most challenging position in our sport. And so, like I said, this was an opportunity, based on value of a young prospect that we really like coming out.
It's still a big night for Will. He's still got a lot on the line. You think his head's in a good place as he goes out on the field?
Yeah, I think it's as good as it can be. Yes, I mean I think he's had an opportunity to digest it last night. We had walkthroughs today at the stadium this afternoon, so he was there and was right on top of everything. So I think he's definitely dialed in, ready to go.
There are things you could have done with Will to make him available on game day, and I don't know if those same things will be what you want to do with Lance. Will it have any effect on your cut first to 53?
I think the biggest thing is once you get the information from, after last week, we started to have a general idea of, really where guys are, as far as from 53 to 68, really what I'm focused on here tonight, because, that needs to sort itself out. And that's always the tough part when you have a healthy, 90-man roster like we do. So I've always enjoyed this last game because there's always young guys that step up, and they're going to play a lot of football tonight. And I'm not only just talking about offense and defense, their opportunity on special teams is going to be huge for a number of guys. So excited to see them play.
In your experience, do guys, whether it was 4 games or even 6, do guys – no, but I was. Do guys make the team or get themselves off the team in the last game sometimes?
I think it's as much as their own individual value, because this practice squad, which I'm a huge fan of, to me is critical to the success of your football team. I always go back to my own personal experience. The year that we won the Super Bowl, it took 77 players to win that Super Bowl, and that's something that's very rare, very real. And if you go back and look at the history, particularly now in a 17-game season, like I said, 53 to 68 is very important. And so hopefully we can get some clarity on that, and hopefully we're blessed, Monday and Tuesday to get all our guys back.
All right, I know that's a harrowing couple of days for you, so good luck with that. Have fun tonight, Mike. Thanks for the time. Fellas, back to you.
Thank you, Brad Sham, as we broadcast live in the Brad Sham radio booth here inside of AT&T Stadium, getting you set for kickoff. Cowboys-Raiders preseason game number 3. It'll be Dak Prescott calling the plays for the Cowboys for all 4 quarters. Will Grier will be quarterbacking the entire game as well. And how about this? A GOAT is in the building. Tom Brady is here at AT&T Stadium. So we don't have Trey Lance here yet, but Tom Brady is in the building because he's now when he's part owner of the Raiders?
Yeah, part owner of the Raiders. So he's come here to check out his investment. So good for him, though. It should be an interesting game tonight. And like I say, I don't want it to bog down, for the Cowboys. I'd like to see them have some. I'd like to see these guys that are really fighting for roster spots get some shine.
Yeah.
So that, and maybe I can't. I mean, there were times when I was working in personnel when guys would show up. I'll give you an example. Desmond Howard, we're in Green Bay. Desmond Howard has got a hamstring injury really all summer long. And, we're debating on whether to keep him or cut him or what we're going to do. Final preseason game, Desmond Howard returns a punt against the Indianapolis Colts. And next thing you know, we're doing the cuts, and Mike Holmgren goes, Desmond's on this team. He's going to be our punt returner and kick returner. Later that year, Desmond Howard wins the MVP of the Super Bowl. So,
Unreal,
it just shows you that there are some times where these players, you think they've got one foot in the parking lot,
and
then all of a sudden things kind of turn around for them. I hope that all the guys that are having these opportunities get a chance to shine tonight.
Well, I hope all Cowboys fans and Tolos that make their way over to AT&T Stadium tonight give themselves the opportunity to swing by locations 201, 226, 413, and 444 for Legends Hospitality Lineman Burrito. My dear God, ladies and gentlemen.
Is amazing.
17-inch tortilla. It's filled with the famous Cowboys mac and cheese, one-of-a-kind mac and cheese, in-house smoked brisket, jalapeno pepper jack sausage, pico de gallo, and house-made candied jalapenos. The engineer is giving it 2 thumbs up right now inside the booth here. He just housed one of those burritos, and you can as well if you're coming to the game tonight. Locations 201, 226, 413, and 444. Legends Hospitality here at AT&T Stadium. Always getting it done.
Always getting it done, and I'll tell you what, you eat one by yourself, you're not going to eat for 2 days.
Yeah,
that
that's
thing
true.
Is like it's like a loaf of, just the size of like a loaf of bread. It's like
it's a big dog.
It's a big hunker of a.
I can't wait to house one of those
things. It's amazing.
Things. Yeah, it's going to be special.
Words can't even describe how big and nice that is.
Okay, thank you, Brian Broaddus, for the scout's eye on the big, nice burrito that he can't wait to house in just a few minutes. Let's get to know the enemy, and we go into the owner's box with Christy Scales and Jerry Jones. Coming up next, Dallas Cowboys football will continue in a moment.
What is the Maverick Factor?
It's being
Cowboys Raiders preseason game number 3. The pregame party continues live in the Brad Sham radio booth. We're standing by for Cowboys owner Jerry Jones, and we're still reeling from Broadus's burrito analysis. We always appreciate his scout's eye. And one guy that I know he's got his eye on tonight is a Texas Tech Red Raider, the rookie, a top 5 pick in the NFL draft, and he will be making his NFL debut tonight here at AT&T Stadium. And as we get to know the enemy, brought to you by Arrow Exterminators, the official pest control provider of the Dallas Cowboys. Broadus, what do we need to know about Mr. Tyree Wilson, edge rusher, supreme athlete, a little bit banged up throughout training camp? He makes his debut against the Cowboys tonight.
Yeah, this guy is ideal height and weight. The combination of the two is just super impressive. He was a linebacker, or listed as a linebacker at Texas Tech, and I said this, he's going to have to play end in the NFL. Transfers, we know, from Texas A&M. He's got tremendous power and strength. And when you watched him play, there were several times where he was just able to bring the ball carrier down with one hand. Like, you know, you all of a sudden he just reaches and then the ball carrier runs into his arm, and then now that ball carrier is on the ground. He'll push blockers back into the backfield easily. And I'll tell you what, you know, when it comes to rushing the passer, this guy can really charge the corner. So he's going to test these Cowboys tackles tonight in this game. Very disruptive in the way he plays.
Fantastic. Looking forward to seeing Tyree Wilson. Looking forward to seeing these Dallas Cowboys. But right now, standing by with Jerry Jones is Cowboys sideline reporter Christy Scales, live from the owner's box. Christy, take it away.
Well, it is 2 for 1 tonight with the owner's box because Jerry Jones has one of his closest friends in the NFL and Raiders owner Mark Davis. And Jerry, I know that you've had a long relationship with the Davis family.
Well, his dad is, to me, not only a mentor, but I loved him. And I was telling him how proud that his dad would be of him, because his dad couldn't have put that deal together and done Las Vegas. And he did, and he pushed on it, and certainly he did it and was a lot because of he wanted his dad to be proud of it. But that deal that he's done in Las Vegas is a magnificent tribute to not only Al Davis, but certainly the NFL. But Mark is a special friend, a very special friend. And let me tell you one thing, NFL football is in his veins. If he stumps a toe, that's football coming out, not blood.
So there's quarterback news tonight. Well, we were not going to see Jimmy Garoppolo tonight, but changes with the Raiders. But you also have Tom Brady here. So, I mean, it's like we've got a triple threat on the sideline. But can you talk about the relationship with Tom and why he's down here with you and Jerry?
Well, Tom and I have known each other for quite a while. Obviously, I've seen him play for a number of years. I believe that the Raiders helped start his career on a play that we still don't talk about too much in our family. But Tom is a wonderful man. He's been around football all his life. He's a partner with me with the Las Vegas Aces, and he's going to become a partner with me with the Las Vegas Raiders once we get through the vetting process of the National Football League.
And Mark was referring to the tuck rule, but he can't say it. I think it can't pass his lips. But, Jerry, I did have a quarterback question for you. I know you spoke with local media earlier about the trade for Trey Lance. But why Lance and why now?
Well, first of all, let me mention the tuck rule. I don't know why, but Al, the Raiders, they've changed a lot of rules in the NFL, both for them and both that might have not have gone their way. But that just shows their impact on the league. And his father was a founder because he cut his teeth building the AFL. And, of course, that was put into the NFL at the time and created what we're standing on today. And you understand what those guys had to beat out to make us have what we've got today, and you'll have a lot of respect for what they are about. Yeah, we traded for a quarterback. You can't have enough potential young quarterbacks that you can work with and have income. We thought he was good enough to stay on our roster. I'm winking. We think he will. We need that. He'll be in a room with Dak Prescott, whose finest quality, whose number one skill is leading and taking what he learns in a classroom to the football field. He'll get exposed to that. That'll help him. And I hope we don't need him at all I don't even want to mention years, but we all know that's not the game.
We thank you both for your time. Thank you so much. We appreciate it, Mr. Davis.
Why don't you ask Mark so many questions?
I'm good with that. All I want to say is that I'm just really humbled by the kind words that Jerry has put towards me, but he's been a mentor to me since my father passed away, and I'll never forget that. I have a debt to Mr. Jones.
And we're hoping for a preseason invitation to play at Allegiant Stadium. It's a short hop from Oxnard.
We have a game at the end of this season between the Raiders and the
yeah, you've got the Super Bowl at home.
Yeah.
It worked out for the Rams.
So let's see how that works.
See you in February in Las Vegas. Thank you, gentlemen.
That I went to his dad's 70th birthday, and I was the only non-Raider at his daddy's 70th birthday in Las Vegas. That was held in Las Vegas.
Wow, I bet that was something. February's
loyal to my family ever since I've known him, and I'm so appreciative of it.
We appreciate you coming on. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Mark. That's the view from the owner's box with the Raiders and Cowboys owners. We continue counting down to kickoff. Let's rejoin Eric and Brian.
Thank you, Christy. Tonight's Owner's Box brought to you by Papa John's, the official pizza of the Dallas Cowboys. Papa John's, better ingredients, better pizza. It is Papa John's. That's a bunch of guys you know very well. Jerry, Mark Davis, Al Davis, a man who's been around the Raiders.
I'm so proud. I'm so proud of Mark and what he's done. He's one of the finest. He did the deal with the Raiders, with Vegas. It was very good, a very good deal. Jerry Jones, can't say enough of good things about Jerry.
Love that guy.
Meant to me. He's a great man.
The not-so-limited fake Al Davis from...
I worked for him for 2 weeks.
That's right. And you picked up on him pretty dang quickly there. That was impressive. My biggest regret of today's program is not making you do your limited fake Al Davis in front of Raiders play-by-play voice Jason Horowitz earlier.
I did, but I've done it in front of players.
No, you have. You have.
Yeah.
I should have teed you up for it. I think you would have appreciated it very much.
Yes.
All right, here we go. We're counting down to kickoff. We are inching closer and closer. 24 minutes to Cowboy kickoff. Let's chat with the man himself, voice of the Cowboys, Brad Sham. Coming up next, you're listening to the Dallas Cowboys Radio Network.
One of the main reasons for
Pre-kickoff, Cowboys and Raiders. We're here at AT&T Stadium, getting you to kick off as quickly as possible. We'll catch up with Brad Sham, voice of the Cowboys, coming up in just a few minutes. But right now, let's head down to the turf at AT&T Stadium and get Christy Scales' keys to the game. Brought to you by Pollock Aurora, proud supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Christy, plenty to get into, but Trey Lance not in the building tonight. Wanted to circle back on him, though, because I know you got a chance to see him in person a few years ago.
I did when he led North Dakota State to the championship there in Frisco at Toyota Stadium. I did work that sideline broadcast for Westwood One Radio, and so got to see him in person and be part of the media events during the week. He's a well-spoken, mature young man. And that was the same game, by the way, that featured Ben DiNucci for James Madison. And then the Cowboys also signed Rondell Carter, who was part of James Madison. But talking with some folks here with Cowboy Scouting, the thing about Lance, just so athletic and, you know, so much potential. They do feel that a change of scenery will be a good thing for him, just because the situation, you know, losing out on the jobs there in San Francisco and just with the frustration of injury and working through that. So, you know, they just love him and the talent that he has, and what a great guy to develop. And, you know, coming to Dallas, especially for a fourth-round pick, high reward possibly and low risk with a fourth-round pick in the trade, so it can be a positive thing. But as Jerry just told us in the owner's box just a few minutes ago, we hope that we don't see him on the field this year, but have him in the building. And with the new rule, with a 53-man roster, having, with a third quarterback needing to be on the 53-man roster, that means that there'll be one less other position that these guys are fighting for tonight. So whether that's a backup running back, backup tight end, will they have to go one short maybe at defensive line or defensive back, remains to be seen. But Trey Lance, he should be landing in North Texas within the next hour and a half, but it's my understanding that he will be going to a hotel and not coming here to AT&T Stadium. There is no plan for him to be here tonight.
Awesome, Christy. Anything else before we let you go?
No, just, Will Grier all the way tonight, Dak calling plays, and, like Brian Schottenheimer, offensive coordinator, said, we'll remind him to get some run plays too. So, but it'll be fun. Will Grier will have Dak in his ear all night making the play calls. Fantastic.
Thank you. As always, Christy, enjoy the game.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Brian.
Absolutely. There she goes, Cowboys sideline reporter Christy Scales. Dak will be calling the plays tonight. He walked in the building with a number 15 red Buckeye jersey, showing love to his guy Zeke. So maybe he's willing to hand the ball off a time or two. But now we go inside the booth with the voice of the Cowboys, Brad Sham. Brought to you by WinStar World Casino and Resort, the casino of the Dallas Cowboys. Brad, happy game day, my friend.
Thank you very much. I am most intrigued of everything I've heard today. About 2.5 hours ago, your comment that you were really geeked about all the new analytics people the Cowboys have.
Yes, sir.
And that you're fired up about that, and there are some really solid logistics selections. Did I quote you correctly?
I think you nailed it. I think you absolutely nailed it.
Why are you excited about that?
Well, in the G-Bag Nation, I'm at least the one
Dr.
guy.
Numbers.
I'm the one guy who likes the advanced metrics. I appreciate, obviously, the eye in the sky don't lie, with Krusty always keeping me accountable. But I like to give the other perspective on it. And so, I thought that was a pretty big situation this offseason where it feels like, Brad, they revamped the analytics department.
Well, you ought to be on the airplane sometime. They take up about 2 full sections.
These calculators.
I don't know. No, just the people. There's so many. I don't know what the hell they're doing. and I do think there's a great place for all that analytical study during the week.
Yep.
But I would hate to think that Mike McCarthy's going to be standing down there getting ready to call a play, waiting for someone to tell him the analytic benefit of running versus passing. People are playing the game.
Right.
You, the likes of you're trying to baseballize football. Settle down. It's human beings.
No, for sure, it's human beings, but you want all the information you can get
beforehand.
Right? Beforehand.
Right.
Okay, so you want everything beforehand, but in real time when things are happening, if there's new information, you don't want it?
What new information are we going to get during the game?
Well, I think in real time they might say, hey, Mike, you didn't know before the game you were going to be in this situation.
If
so
the
I'd
head
like to let
coach
you know
and
right
the
now.
play caller doesn't anticipate every possibility of a down and distance and score situation, then I'm not sure he's earning his money.
Well, last week, one of your favorite things is last week has never met this week. So how can you really know exactly what you're heading into until it happens? You don't know what time, score, timeouts, who's injured, who's not.
But you want to help me?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I was just going to talk to you about the Scouts game. That's what I was going to talk about.
Okay, this is another subject. We'll do this another time.
All right, I look forward to it.
Yeah.
I got coffee lined up with Babe. Let's double down. Let's do some coffee.
It is, I'm not an analytics guy.
Yeah, no, I know.
I'm not. When they start talking analytics, I just kind of say, "Hey, Brad, this is the Scouts game, and you and I used to do the Scouts game together. And we always appreciate the fact that the Scouts, there's still spots. We think
because
we're looking at various number of running backs, number of receivers, number of tight ends. Is there any one position that is really unsettled in your mind?
So, this quarterback situation is interesting in the short run only because it does, I think, take up a spot.
Right.
So, Turpin, they'd already decided Turpin wasn't playing tonight.
Mm-hmm.
That says to me that he's made the team.
He's number 5 then.
Right. Now, what I've seen of number 83, who will be starting the game again, I don't want to put him on the street. I want to keep him around. And plus, tonight's another opportunity for him to play teams, and you can analyze that film. So I think I'm going to keep 6 of them. I think.
Where are you going to go short?
So, there's something. Every time I want to say, okay, I'll keep 3 running backs.
Right.
But are these the 3 running backs that I want? I've got a guy coming off an injury and another guy coming off 2 years' worth of an injury and another guy who I think of more as a specialty player. I love him, Deuce Vaughn. Love the pick. But I don't know that he's your 20 carry a game running back. So, and I like Malik Davis, so now I'm saying, well, maybe I'll only keep 3 tight ends. I do think that you can. What's McEwen's status? Is he vested? He might have been around long enough. I think you could probably release him and sign him back,
right?
And elevate him when you wanted to.
But there's something kind of funny with guaranteed contracts.
Oh,
and
well,
things
now
like
see,
that.
that's analytics. I don't know anything.
No, I don't know anything about the analytics or the contracts. I just watch the players and say, I think this guy could play.
Right. Well, and that, as you are saying, that you and I always really enjoyed that because there are people who are going to, and McCarthy says it, there's going to be guys tonight who make you go, whoa.
Right.
In a good way and a bad way.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So the runners, I'm interested in seeing the runners, but I think that we're going to see Lipke more than anybody else.
Sure.
I'm really interested in Asim Richards.
Me too.
And I'm interested in how many positions he plays.
Right.
They've got Farniak starting at center again. I think I didn't like based on all my years of scouting, I didn't like what I saw of Brock Hoffman at center in week 1.
I was not a fan of that either.
And so I thought Farniak did a better job, and the fact that he's starting at center, that's of interest to me. And I don't know how many other decisions they have to make, really.
Always appreciate the time, Brad. Thank you very much. Sure, enjoy the game.
Discussion. We got to have an analytics discussion.
I look forward to the analytics discussion. Absolutely. All right, there he goes. Voice of the Cowboys, Brad Sham, as we continue to broadcast live here inside the Brad Sham radio booth, but we're about to hand it off to him. Kickoff is around the corner. My guy Broadus and the Woolly Bully Zach Wolchuk will have you covered at halftime and in the postgame. But with kickoff around the corner, we pass it over to Brad and Babe and Christy. They got you covered the rest of the way. Cowboys and Raiders coming up next. Dallas Cowboys football will continue in a moment.